Chapter 180, Shanling. Chen Fan laughed heartily. He and Meng Hao transformed into beams of light that shot off toward the others. Li frowned when Meng Hao approached with Chen Fan. "My junior brother is acquainted with my master and wishes to visit him," said Chen Fan coolly in explanation. "He will accompany us back to the sect." Li said nothing and transformed into a beam that shot up into the sky. "After we arrive, I'll ask Master to take you as a disciple. Then we'll be fellow brothers. It shouldn't be difficult. I've never asked anything of Master, so there's an 80 to 90% chance he'll agree. Of course, I expect he'll only accept you as a novitiate. However, his cultivation base is at the nascent soul stage, so being one of his novitiates is still a high position within the solitary sword sect." It seemed Chen Fan already had Meng Hao's future planned out meticulously. Meng Hao hesitated for a moment and then said, "Elder brother, for the moment, I don't think that's necessary. I actually have some matters I need to take care of." "Little junior brother," said Chen Fan, his expression suddenly very solemn. "I understand that you don't want to join another sect. I felt the same way back then. I only wanted to be a member of a single sect for my entire life. However, we are cultivators. Our sect is the foundation of everything, especially in the southern domain. Anyone who is not a member of a sect is a rogue cultivator. Regardless of cultivation base level, rogue cultivators make progress only with great difficulty. Years can be wasted, and the results can be in vain. You need to listen to me in this matter. The solitary sword sect is the #1 sect in the southern domain. Its Tao reserves are incredibly profound. It's a place where both of us can grow up." Meng Hao didn't respond. Chen Fan continued giving advice until afternoon the next day. Eventually, the solitary sword sect's main gate appeared up ahead. Finally, Meng Hao nodded. Chen Fan's smile grew wider as he gazed at Meng Hao with the kind warmth of a member of the elder generation looking at a junior. Although he wasn't very much older than Meng Hao, in his eyes, Meng Hao was still that young scholar who had just joined the sect. The solitary sword sect was an enormous mountain, visible from far off. It was the #1 mountain in the southern domain, 100 times larger than others. The name of this mountain was Solitary Tao Mountain. Floating above it in the sky was another mountain that seemed to be a mirror image of it. From a distance, they made an outline like that of an hourglass. Anyone who caught sight of it for the first time would surely be shocked. The name of the second mountain was Solitary Sword Mountain. The mountains were so large that it was almost impossible to look from one end to the other in a single glance. Meng Hao had never seen mountains as large as this in his entire life. He couldn't help but tremble inwardly at the sight of them. But between them was a massive sword piercing through them into the ground. The hilt of the sword protruded above the mountains and stretched up into the sky. Boundless rays of morning sunlight filled the area, giving it a truly celestial feeling. Meng Hao took a deep breath. He had now seen 2 of the great sects. The Black Civ sect was undeniably influential. The dread caused by their power would cause anyone to bow before them. However, the solitary sword sect's sheer, raw might didn't cause others to bow before them, but to fear them. "I wonder what the other great sects look like," thought Meng Hao to himself as he gazed at the solitary sword sect. The group of people flew along quickly. As they approached Solitary Tao Mountain, they reached an area that was protected by a beautiful field of colorful light. Up ahead, the man named Li looked back coldly at Meng Hao and then gave a cold snort. With that, his disappeared into the light. Meng Hao watched coolly as he left. In his estimation, the man was someone who couldn't really see to the heart of things. If Chen Fan hadn't stopped him earlier, the man would either have been injured or killed. It all would have depended on Meng Hao's mood. "Don't worry," said Chen Fan, clearly worried for Meng Hao. "Once Master accepts you as a novitiate, then elder brother Li won't dare to bother you." He gave a comforting smile and then pulled Meng Hao in through the colorful field of light. He pulled out a glowing jade slip. The light swirled up around the 2 of them. It flickered, and then they disappeared. They reappeared at the foot of Solitary Tao Mountain. The air held blooming flowers and birdsong. Gurgling streams could be seen. There were quite a few solitary sword sect disciples going to and fro. When they saw Chen Fan, each and every one gave him respectful salutes. Chen Fan led Meng Hao to the courtyard of a house. "Little junior brother," he said, "you wait for me here. I'm going to go pay my respects to the elders. After that, I'll go look for Master. I probably won't return until after nightfall. You rest a bit here or go walk around if you'd like. Don't go too far, though. When I get back, we can stay up all night chatting." He clasped Meng Hao's shoulder and then turned and flew off in a beam of colorful light. Meng Hao watched him depart, then looked around at his surroundings. He opened the gate of the courtyard and entered the house. It was decorated tastefully, although not extravagantly. Everything emanated refinement. This was especially true of the vast collection of scrolls. Meng Hao selected one of the ancient texts and sat down cross-legged to examine it. After some time passed, he put the ancient scroll down, and a thoughtful look gleamed in his eyes. Maybe I should join the solitary sword sect, he thought, his brow furrowed. It wasn't his first choice. However, the Black Sieve sect surely wouldn't just let go the matter of the meat jelly. Entering the solitary sword sect might not be a bad choice. His eyes glittered stubbornly at the thought of the Violet Fate sect. Dispelling his poison wasn't the only reason he wished to do so. I'm still inclined toward the Violet Fate sect, he thought. I really want to learn Violet Chi from the East. With that technique, he could form a violet core, which was the pinnacle of core formation. Furthermore, I need to study alchemy. I can't rely on others to do it for me every time I need a pill concocted. That's especially true of the perfect core pill. Meng Hao sat there for some time lost in thought. Soon, evening began to fall. Sunlight streamed in from outside. Meng Hao took a deep breath and, seeing that Chen Fan hadn't returned, decided to step outside of the house for a bit to look at solitary Dao Mountain. The setting sun gave the mountain a hazy appearance. Mist rose around it as Meng Hao's eyes narrowed. He caught sight of a woman in blue-green, floating down a path on the mountain. Her appearance cleared the haziness. The sound of people dropping to their knees and prostrating themselves to her could be heard. Its elder sister Xianling. 1. Xianling's name in Chinese is Chinese letter Xianling. Xian means mountain. Ling means spirit. It's really elder sister Xianling. On the 9th day of every month at dusk, she descends to collect dewdrops. Greetings, elder sister Xianling. The sound of voices drifted down to Meng Hao. He watched as the woman slowly floated down the mountain, and his heart trembled as suddenly the voice of the demon-sealing Jade sounded out in his head. A stone of the 9th mountain descended and became a new mountain Chinese letter. The mountain Chinese letter has a spirit Chinese letter, and the spirit Chinese letter is demonic. Its will is not of this world. If you encounter it, allow it to transform magically if it is good. Seal and exterminate it if it is violent. Make your choice after careful consideration. It echoed in Meng Hao's mind. He recovered his composure. He was used to the bizarreness of the demon-sealing Jade. He looked at the woman and his eyes shone with a strange light. Quite a large group of cultivators had flown over and were bowing to the woman and offering respectful words. One of them was none other than the middle-aged man named Li, who bowed toward her politely. The moment that Meng Hao's gaze fell upon the woman, she looked down at him and seemed to pause in midair. A sharp look filled her eyes as she looked at him. Their gazes locked for a few breaths. Her brow furrowed before she looked away and continued off. She left, but the man named Li seemed to have taken notice of the look that had passed between the two of them. He had noticed her furrowed brow. He gave a cold harumph and shot down toward Meng Hao. This aroused the attention of the surrounding solitary sword sect disciples. Li appeared above the courtyard in an instant. He looked down, a cold gleam in his eyes. "You again," he said coldly. "First you overestimate yourself, then you disrespect elder sister Xianling. Just what is your purpose in coming here?" This caused many of the surrounding disciples to look at Meng Hao. "Who is this guy? He looks a bit familiar, but I don't think I've seen him before." "I remember him. That's the guest who elder brother Chen brought with him earlier this afternoon. I wonder what elder brother Li wants with him." Meng Hao's expression was the same as ever as he looked up at the haughty Li character. "What exactly do you mean, Your Excellency?" said Meng Hao coolly. "Whatever your purpose here, you're in the solitary sword sect. Considering your actions here, I think I need to take your elder brother's place in teaching you a lesson." He obviously wasn't interested in providing any sort of education to Meng Hao. Meng Hao had left him with a bad impression originally, and when combined with the Xianling's frown, caused him to be filled with ill feelings. He lifted his right hand, whereupon the power of the great circle of foundation establishment exploded out. "Ridiculous," said Meng Hao coolly. The Li man's hand descended, and the illusory image of a large sword appeared. It descended toward Meng Hao, bursting with the power of the great circle of foundation establishment. Meng Hao's eyes flashed coldly, and he lifted his own hand. He didn't have any good feelings toward this person, after all. However, before he could actually do anything, a small black dagger shot toward them and slammed into the Li man's phantom sword. A boom rattled out, and the phantom sword disintegrated. The Li man's face flashed as Chen Fan shot toward them in a beam of colorful light. "Elder brother Li, you continue to harass my junior brother. With a cultivation base at the pseudo-core stage, must you really cause me to lose so much face? I'm one of the 7 solitary sword sons. Just who the hell do you think you are? Chapter 181. Meeting one's match, the general meets the genius. Chen Fan arrived with his words. He landed in front of Meng Hao, glaring coldly at the man named Li. Li's expression soured. He stared at Chen Fan, his gaze drawn especially to the black flying dagger. "Do you think you can protect him forever?" he said with a cold snort. "He's wasting away in mid-foundation establishment, hiding behind others." "As long as I'm here, I won't let you touch a hair on my little junior brother's head," said Chen Fan, his voice hard as iron. Li glared at Meng Hao with hatred. "If not for your elder brother, I'd kill you with a wave of my hand. Let's see how long you can hide." He flicked his sleeve and vanished into the distance. Meng Hao sighed as he watched him go. He could read the man's expression well enough, but could do nothing. Exterminating him would be simple. Twice now, Chen Fan had stepped between them, making battle impossible. Chen Fan looked back, and Meng Hao offered a wry smile. Chen Fan misinterpreted it. "Don't worry, little junior brother, that Li fellow is nothing. With me here, he won't dare bully you." He gestured earnestly. "Master went into secluded meditation last month and won't emerge for a few more months, but I left him a message. After we return from the Song clan, you can officially join the solitary sword sect. Then Li won't dare touch you. For now, just be careful. I'll be at your side anyway, so you're safe." Chen Fan's concern warmed Meng Hao's heart. "Many thanks, elder brother," he said, clasping hands. "What thanks? Don't be polite. Come, let's light candles and chat all night." He laughed and pulled Meng Hao inside, where he produced 2 jars from his bag of holding. "Your elder brother doesn't have much, but I grabbed these from Master's 2 jars of sword wine. Good stuff. I've grown to like it." He handed one to Meng Hao and opened his own. Meng Hao drank. His face reddened and heat flooded his body. Sweat broke out across his skin. He breathed slowly and his eyes glowed more brightly. "What alcohol is this?" Master brews it himself. "Drink up. It's excellent for cultivators, especially foundation establishment, comparable to medicinal pills." He drank again. "I have it all the time. Oh, little junior brother, I see you're at mid-foundation establishment. Don't forget, we cultivators build mountains, establish a firm foundation." He spoke earnestly, and Meng Hao listened. "Don't greedily race through stages and ignore your base. Take me? I could have created my 4th Tao pillar last year, but Master forbade it. He always says creating Tao pillars is like turning trees into boats, irreversible. Go with the flow and exercise caution. Refining the 3rd pillar matters more. Once it's full and complete, then create the 4th properly." "Another thing," said Chen Fan seriously. "We're bound to encounter friction with other cultivators, but you can't solve all problems by killing. Understand, magical techniques and items are just ways to protect the Tao. They are protection, not the Tao itself." "What is the Tao? My cultivation base is too low to understand it. But Master once said, though he doesn't quite grasp it himself, that killing and magical techniques are just for protection. Don't let killing overwhelm your Tao. Listen to your heart and follow your principles." Chen Fan studied Meng Hao. "You have a strong killing aura." A voice erupted from Meng Hao's bag of the cosmos. "Yes, exactly. This child's killing aura is too strong. You're right, you make sense." The sudden voice left Chen Fan stunned. Meng Hao's face darkened. Colorful light exploded from the bag, transforming into a parrot that flew circles around the room, then landed on Meng Hao's shoulder. "What's that?" said Chen Fan, still in shock. "I picked it up and can't throw it away," replied Meng Hao. The parrot interrupted. "Son, you're absolutely right. Meng Hao's killing aura is too strong, immoral. Let's discuss some things. I think I'll like you." Meng Hao looked at Chen Fan with sympathy. He could imagine the torture coming. "So you're my little junior brother's spirit creature," said Chen Fan, eyeing the parrot on Meng Hao's shoulder. "Pleased to meet you. I'm happy to discuss anything." Seeing the gleam in Chen Fan's eye, Meng Hao sighed. There was nothing he could do, but he tried anyway. "Elder brother, this bird." "Junior brother, you misspoke. It's a parrot, not a bird, and it speaks. It's intelligent, it's a spirit. Take good care of it." The meat jelly seemed on the verge of tears. It had finally met a kindred spirit. "You're so right. Why couldn't I have met you first? Anyway, why don't we discuss the meaning of life?" "The meaning of life? Yes," said Chen Fan excitedly. "I've always wanted that discussion. My master is always in secluded meditation, as are my other brothers. I plan to chat with my little junior brother, but if you want to join, please do." A discussion about the meaning of life needs building up. For example, why don't we talk about this morning's weather? Only an educated person can discuss weather. The weather? Okay. It was excellent this morning, but I think discussing the killing aura coming off my little junior brother would be more beneficial. Agreed, you're right, you make sense. If weather is bad, it affects mood. Don't you agree? I've never heard that before, but it makes sense. Years ago, on an overcast day, my cultivation went poorly. I was fidgety all day. Your words make sense. Sense? You think I make sense? Heavens. In this life and the lives before, I've never heard such a thing. You think I make sense? The meat jelly trembled with excitement. It flew off Meng Hao's shoulder to stand before Chen Fan. Their talking buzzed in Meng Hao's ears as he watched. Their eyes shone. They met kindred spirits, and a contest had begun. Meng Hao shivered and edged backward. He moved far away to a corner of the building and sat to meditate. Continuing to listen would annoy him. The birds' chatter alone was bad enough. As Meng Hao looked at Chen Fan and the meat jelly parrot, one thought filled his mind. Meeting one's match, the general meets the genius. Time passed. Meng Hao ignored their conversation. 2 hours later, he opened his eyes. He'd assumed they'd finish soon, but they were still going. Right, tell me, am I right? Absolutely. Actually, that reminds me of one day last year. Of course, that's what I said. Oh, weren't we going to discuss the meaning of life? After we finish talking about this morning's weather, let's talk about noon sunshine. Great idea. Let's save the meaning of life for the end. Best under the setting sun, the best time to discuss life. The sound droned on. He stared blankly at Chen Fan's excited face and the equally enthusiastic parrot. Their eyes shone with anticipation. Meng Hao shivered, closed his eyes, and meditated, fearing they'd drag him in. Time slowly passed. This chapter was sponsored by Tjandra Johans, Joshua Jacobs, Aldwin Lalo, Kilmo Arif, and Joseph Apor. Chapter 182. There's always a bird out there that's better than you. Dawn. Meng Hao opened his eyes, then closed them again. What a good friend. In past lives, I only had myself. I never realized how boring talking to myself was, and I never understood why everyone hates me so much. They call me ultimate vexation. Yes, I haven't had a discussion like this in my entire time at the solitary sword sect. Come, now that we've finished the noon sunshine, let's discuss the afternoon. Late morning, sunlight filtered in. Meng Hao opened his eyes and stared blankly at Chen Fan and the meat jelly. He sighed and meditated. I'm sick of afternoons. I remember 1 year's afternoon. Right, me too. I can only grind my teeth then. Hours passed. Soon it was afternoon. Meng Hao opened his eyes a few times but could only laugh bitterly and close them again. Chen Fan and the meat jelly had talked through the entire night and morning. One man, one bird, inexhaustible and in high spirits. Meng Hao couldn't help admiring elder brother Chen. He truly was a perfect match for the meat jelly. Meng Hao sat quietly. He wanted to stand but feared they'd drag him in. He closed his eyes, pretending not to hear. Eventually, the sun began to set. I like sunset best. Every time I see the setting sun, I think of that time when I was a tiny meat jelly. Sunset is wonderful. You don't know how hard cultivation is. Oh, that reminds me, I've collected 1,000 sunset stories. I want to tell you all of them. I'll start with the first. The sun set, evening passed. Another day and night began. One man, one bird chattering endlessly. When midnight came, Chen Fan finally couldn't keep going. Why don't we rest? No, I don't get many chances for such discussion. We haven't discussed the meaning of life. Ah, the meaning of life, what a beautiful flower one. In this passage, he starts to erroneously quote a Chinese expression but then kind of gives up in the middle. Oh, right. Before discussing the meaning of life, we need to talk about moonlight. All right, I have over 3,000 moonlight stories. I have 10,000, you go first, then me. Meng Hao was near collapse. His eyes were bloodshot as he forced himself to meditate. The night passed slowly. Outside, silence. Inside, one man and one bird reached the pinnacle of conversation. Early morning light entered. Chen Fan's face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. Let's rest, I have plans today. No, we still haven't discussed the meaning of life. Now I've finished my 10,000 moonlight stories, we can continue. Morning passed, then noon, then another sunset. Chen Fan stared at the parrot's unceasing words, admiration slowly growing in his eyes. Now we've properly built up, we can discuss the meaning of life. Wait, it's dark. When we discussed sunset, I forgot 30,000 stories. I must tell you them. The meat jelly cleared its throat and spoke again. Hours passed until Chen Fan's patience broke. I really do have plans, he said, standing suddenly. He swayed, took steps back, his face drained. Meng Hao opened his eyes and admired him. He talked nonstop for 2 days and nights. "Little junior brother, I have plans, so I'm leaving. I'll come back in a few days." His face was pale and dizzy. Now he looked at the meat jelly with fear, not admiration. He thought himself a talker, but he was wrong. A bird existed that surpassed him. Without waiting for Meng Hao's response, Chen Fan fled through the door. "Elder brother," Meng Hao called, "you have affinity with this spirit parrot. Why not take it with you?" Chen Fan staggered, his face twisted. Without hesitation, he transformed into light and vanished. "What a good fellow," sighed the meat jelly parrot. "I really like your elder brother Chen. I haven't met someone in years who could sustain such conversation. We never discussed the meaning of life." Meng Hao's scalp grew numb. To provoke such a reaction showed how powerful the meat jelly was. Such power was rare. "Too bad I couldn't finish," said the meat jelly, discontented. "I was just getting excited. Now it's over." It flew onto Meng Hao's shoulder. "Why don't you chat with me? I'm lonely." Meng Hao's face went pale. He forced a wry smile and thought hard. "I think you forgot someone," he said. Who did I forget?" The meat jelly jumped at the chance. "The old man in the mask. You haven't turned him from wickedness yet." "Right, that old man isn't bad, but you're right. I should talk to him." The meat jelly flashed into Meng Hao's bag of the cosmos. Meng Hao barely heard the Li clan patriarch's shrill cry as the meat jelly entered the mask. Meng Hao sighed and sat down, laughing bitterly. He looked at moonlight outside and sighed, wondering what his life would be like. The constant meat jelly was frightening. There must be a way to control it, that damned meat jelly. He gritted his teeth, eyes glittering. Its old enemy, the copper mirror, the parrot. His eyes glittered brighter at the thought of reaching core formation. 3 days passed. Chen Fan never returned, too frightened of the meat jelly to come back. On the 4th day he cautiously returned. He opened the door, retreated several steps. Seeing no parrot on Meng Hao's shoulder, he looked around and sighed. Meng Hao could only give him a wry smile. Chen Fan stood nervously outside. "That, little junior brother, it's gone." He looked nervous. "Mostly," replied Meng Hao, standing up. Chen Fan sighed and looked at him with forced smile. "Little junior brother, that parrot of yours is. Wow, what a bird. I admire it. Well, no need to talk about it. There are only a few days until the Song clan's banquet. I've arranged everything. When it comes time, we can teleport directly there. Today, let me show you around the solitary sword sect. When we come back, it will be your sect, so get to know it." He grabbed Meng Hao's sleeve and pulled him to the courtyard. Meng Hao's expression was unchanged, but his mind studied the map of the southern domain. The Song clan was close to the Violet Fate sect. Regarding the solitary sword sect, he'd thought it through during these past days. He decided not to take Chen Fan's offer to join. He wanted to disguise himself and join the Violet Fate sect. He'd learn Violet Chi from the East and alchemy. He'd get Grandmaster Pill Demon to dispel his poison. The solitary sword sect couldn't help him. He needed someone at the spirit severing stage, not nascent soul. He was certain of this, but Chen Fan was so warm, it wasn't appropriate to refuse directly. Regarding the Song clan, he wanted to see it, but because of Black Civ sect concerns, he hesitated. "I need to reach Hanbei. She can tell me what happened with the Black Civ sect." He rubbed his bag of holding, a cold smile touching his lips. Inside was Jade that could keep Hanbei in check. He followed Chen Fan around the solitary sword sect. Buildings lined the meandering paths, and streams flowed here and there. The whole place looked both imposing and tasteful. The two of them chatted as they walked, and soon it was noontime. Eventually, they reached a large circular structure which was filled with hundreds of energetic solitary sword sect disciples. "This is the battle arena," explained Chen Fan, "where solitary sword sect disciples can fight each other. You can injure but not kill. There are strict punishments for anyone who breaks the rules." Meng Hao looked at it and was about to walk away when suddenly, his brow furrowed. A sinister voice suddenly rang out. "Guests can fight in the battle arena to exchange techniques with our sect disciples. Li shall enter the arena. I would like to invite this outsider guest to duel with me if he dares." It was none other the middle-aged man named Li. A hypocritical smile covered his face as he strolled out from the crowd, staring mockingly at Meng Hao. "Will you hide behind your elder brother again? Can you even make a single attack, you good-for-nothing loser? If you don't dare to fight, then you'd better hope you don't have to face me again in the future." Everyone's eyes came to rest on Meng Hao and Chen Fan. Chapter 183. How long since we saw that shy face? Meng Hao's expression remained unchanged. He looked calmly at sneering Li and the grim-faced Zhou Shanyu next to him. Chen Fan looked angry. He knew Li and Zhou Shanyu were close, and neither liked him. Only his flying dagger kept them from causing trouble. Having Meng Hao at his side, however, had brought endless difficulties from this sinister pair. "Want to fight? How about you two versus me?" said Chen Fan coldly. "As fellow sect members, we have nothing to learn from each other," laughed Li. "I want to see what this outsider can do. Junior brother Chen, you're not preventing such an exchange, are you?" Chen Fan gave a cold snort, grabbing Meng Hao to leave. Meng Hao smiled, finding the situation amusing. Chen Fan was devoted to keeping him safe, and he didn't want to refuse that kindness. He was about to follow when Zhou Shanyu's dark voice rang out. "If you're scared, we understand," the disciples laughed. "How about this? Elder brother Li restricts himself to mid-foundation establishment. That's fair. We really want to see your outsider magic. Junior brother Chen, this doesn't concern you. You can't keep him hiding forever." Solitary sword sect disciples generally avoided outsiders. Many didn't want to sneer at elder brother Chen, but the scene excited them. Chen Fan ignored them, continuing to pull Meng Hao away. But Zhou Shanyu's words made Meng Hao stop. He turned to look at Li and Zhou Shanyu, forcing outrage onto his face. "Since a battle to the death is out of the question, we make a wager," he said, his voice sounding uncontrolled. The disciples laughed. Many had lower cultivation bases than Meng Hao, but were solitary sword sect disciples, the top sect in the southern domain. They felt superior naturally. Zhou Shanyu and Li laughed. "Excellent," said Li. "If you stop hiding behind junior brother Chen and fight me, there's no harm wagering. I have a treasured sword and tens of thousands of spirit stones." He laughed and produced an azure sword from his bag of holding. Its aura wasn't spectacular but wasn't ordinary. "Little junior brother," said Chen Fan. Meng Hao interrupted, eyes bloodshot. "Spirit stones and a sword aren't enough for Meng Hao. Put more on the table," his loud voice rang out. The words and expression were ones he'd used many times in the state of Zhao. He still had an unused golden spear in his bag of the cosmos. The crowd laughed. Li's sneer grew. "Very well, whatever stakes you offer, I'll match in value." Zhou Shanyu laughed. "Whatever you produce, if elder brother Li matches it, so shall I." He glared at Chen Fan, killing intent swirling in his eyes. Meng Hao gasped, eyes darting as if wanting to flee. "Are you serious?" he said, his voice forced. "You're in the solitary sword sect," said Zhou Shanyu haughtily. "Do you think we'd lie?" Chen Fan grabbed Meng Hao's arm, about to speak. Trembling, Meng Hao looked at him. "Elder brother Chen, can you loan me your flying dagger?" Chen Fan looked at him for a long moment. Finally, he lifted his hand, and the black flying dagger appeared, a blade unleashing core formation power. This dagger was extremely important to Chen Fan. Losing it would destabilize his position and have dire consequences. But within a few breaths, he decided to place it in Meng Hao's hand. This brotherly affection made Meng Hao look deeply at Chen Fan. Warmth filled his entire body, creating a memory for life. "Junior brother," said Chen Fan, eyes glowing encouragement, "fight with a light heart. If you lose, no matter. If you win, win something good." Though he lacked faith Meng Hao would win, this was his way. Silence surrounded them as the crowd stared at the black dagger. The silence lasted only a moment before conversation buzzed. "That's Patriarch Zhou's core formation flying dagger. That's the symbol of the 7 solitary sword sons, and elder brother Chen is giving it to a stranger to wager. These stakes are incredible." Eyes shone brightly. More than a few produced transmission Jade slips to notify other disciples. "This is what I'm putting up. Your turn, no bet, no fight." Meng Hao's voice was resolute, eyes shining. To onlookers, his coolness seemed forced, a bluff to scare Zhou and Li away. Zhou Shanyu's body trembled as he glared at the black dagger. He panted, as did Li. They exchanged shocked, excited glances. They'd never imagined Chen Fan would give his flying dagger to his junior brother for a wager. "If you have nothing to bet, you can't blame me for declining," repeated Meng Hao, preparing to hand the dagger back. Zhou Shanyu couldn't allow this. His hand shot up and he ripped open his robe to reveal a jade pendant around his neck. "This is a life-saving jade forged by my father with blood from his cultivation base. No attack power, but it withstands nascent soul attacks. If you win, it's yours. I'll give you cultivation-based blood to refine it. Zhou never break my word." His voice rang like iron. Chen Fan and the onlookers gasped. Chen Fan stared at the jade, a treasure his master gave his son. It definitely exceeded the flying dagger's value. Meng Hao feigned complete shock. He breathed heavily, making Zhou Shanyu laugh coldly. In forced voice, Meng Hao said, "That's not enough. You said both would match whatever I put up." Li laughed heartily. He glared coldly at Meng Hao, then gave pale Chen Fan a sinister look. He was certain of what to do. He knew Chen Fan's personality, no devious tricks, so his expression revealed his true feelings. "I, Li, don't have precious treasures like junior brother Zhou, but I have spirit stones saved. Fellow disciples, if you loan me spirit stones, I'll repay you with an extra stone per 100. He laughed as hundreds of cultivators saluted respectfully. A few flew over, then more. "No problem, elder brother Li. I have a few thousand from my savings. They're yours." "We can definitely help, elder brother Li." Hundreds of voices filled the air. They produced spirit stones in amounts from hundreds to thousands. Soon, tens of thousands were piled together. "These don't compare to junior brother Zhou's treasure. Fine, I won't take advantage. I have magical items worth tens of thousands of spirit stones. Total value, roughly 500,000. He flicked his sleeve, shot into the air as light toward the battle arena, landing in the middle and staring at Meng Hao. Chen Fan looked at him with forced smile. He was about to advise when Meng Hao placed the dagger on the ground and flew toward the battle arena. No one stopped him. The surrounding cultivators craned their necks. Li stood arrogantly. He pressed his finger between his eyebrows, immediately lowering his cultivation base from late foundation establishment to mid-foundation establishment, 6 Dao pillars worth. "I'm not the sort to bully you," he said, jaw out, "so I'll use only mid-foundation establishment power. I won't use late foundation establishment." "Actually, there's no need," murmured Meng Hao. He stood in the battle arena, his expression entirely different now. Nothing was fake. He smiled with happiness and shyness. The people here didn't know this shyness, but Violet Fate sect members from years ago in the state of Zhao knew it well. Their scalps would grow numb seeing it. They'd think themselves in nightmare, fly into violent rage. "Soon you'll eat your words," said Meng Hao shyly. He looked like the young scholar from Mount Daqing years ago, a little embarrassed as he stepped forward. Chapter 184, 7 Exterminations. Li didn't know how famous Meng Hao was in the state of Zhao, or about the iron spear within the Violet Fate sect. Meng Hao shot toward Li. He lifted his right hand in an incantation sign. A flame dragon roared out. It was small, only 30 meters long, with dark color and 2 flapping wings. A flying rain dragon. Meng Hao's cultivation base power was congealed inside it, no leakage. Only someone significantly more powerful, at a higher stage, could sense the slight fluctuations. It seemed like mid-foundation establishment power, or perhaps weaker. Sneers filled the cultivators' faces outside the battle arena. They were amused. Chen Fan groaned inwardly. His eyes dulled as he thought, not about his dagger but about the arena. There was no telling what deadly moves Li might use. Zhou Shanyu watched, smiling. He looked pleased. He never liked Chen Fan, not from when his father brought him to the solitary sword sect. His father treated him too well for an outsider. The flying dagger given to Chen Fan, Zhou Shanyu thought of it as his own. How could it go to someone else? Why wasn't he among the 7 solitary sword sons? He didn't understand and didn't dare complain to his father. This enmity grew stronger. "Finally my chance," he thought. "Chen Fan, the dagger will be mine, you nobody. Do you dare contend with me?" He smiled and laughed. Within the battle arena, Li laughed. A haughty look covered his face as he watched the flame dragon speed toward him. "A barbarian from a backwater sect. You don't deserve to be here. Your magic is simple. You dare use a trifling flame dragon. Restricted to mid-foundation establishment, I can still kill you easily." He flicked his sleeve, mid-foundation establishment power boiling out. He raised his hand, and illusory sun and moon appeared on either side. The sun and moon transformed into 2 gleaming sword auras. He waved his hand and they shot toward the flame dragon. The cultivators cheered. The sun and moon sword slammed into the flame dragon, twisting and warping. The moon sword collapsed to pieces, transforming to ash from the heat. The sun sword also collapsed. The 30-meter flame dragon wasn't scratched. Its momentum increased toward Li. It expanded, 30 meters, 90, 150, suddenly 300 meters, still growing. A mysterious power emanated, forming a monstrous flame sea. Its massive wings covered the sky, submerging the battle arena in flame. All too quick, Li couldn't have predicted this. Zhou Shanyu and the surrounding disciples watched, stunned. A roar filled the air. The battle arena shook. Its shield rippled, holding back the power. As the roar sounded, Meng Hao shot forward like lightning. Li's face went white, disbelief filling it. 9 jade slips appeared around him, emanating protective energy against the flame sea. But Meng Hao shot like an arrow. He slammed into the shield. A boom and miserable shout. The onlookers watched dumbstruck. The flames died. Li spun backward like a cut kite, blood spraying from his mouth, shock in his eyes. Meng Hao emerged from the flame sea calm. He smiled shyly. Zhou Shanyu gasped in shock. Chen Fan blinked with disbelief. Amidst the silence, Li's body stopped. A grim expression appeared. He pushed down on his forehead. His body quivered, filling with great circle foundation establishment power. Pseudo-core power exploded out. Far beyond what he'd shown before. Killing intent radiated from his eyes as he watched Meng Hao stride from the flame sea. Haughtiness filled his face. You seem qualified to die by my true power. Meng Hao's expression remained unchanged. He smiled shyly, said nothing. Seeing the smile, Li felt abhorrence. He shot forward, lifting his hand toward his bag to retrieve a sword. The azure sword spun above his head, whale-shaped. It sucked in Li's late foundation establishment power. A buzzing filled the air. 7 ghost sword images appeared. 7 exterminations. Elder brother Li uses a killing move. That's one of Foundation Establishment's most powerful stances. The 7 solitary sword suns, profound magic. Chen Fan's expression twisted. Solitary sword 7 exterminations. He stepped forward when Zhou Shanyu laughed, stretching his arm to block. Junior brother Chen, it's forbidden to interfere. You won't break sect rules, will you? Within the battle arena, Li's hair whipped wildly. He flashed incantation signs, a cyclone springing up. It merged with the sword, a roar filling the air. A vicious expression crossed his face as he waved a finger. The azure sword split the air, shooting at incredible speed toward Meng Hao. This was one of Foundation Establishment's most powerful moves, the solitary sword sect's most powerful art. For Li to use it meant he intended a fatal blow. This magic will win me a place among the 7 suns. Today, I'll christen it with your head. His voice echoed as the sword screamed forward. The sword and 7 ghost images bore down on Meng Hao. A smile appeared in Meng Hao's eyes. I'm still a bit deficient in magical techniques, he muttered. He struck his hand forward, everything shook, the sword stopped. He took a step and struck again. Each strike another step. By the 5th strike he was upon the sword. The ground quaked. A massive illusory hand appeared, shooting toward the sword. 1. In case you forgot the origin of the technique Meng Hao is using, you can check out chapter 149, Killing Intent, as well as the chapter after that. Meng Hao's spiritual sense burst out. In early Foundation Establishment, his spiritual sense shocked late Foundation Establishment cultivators. Now with an additional Tao pillar, even more powerful, the spiritual sense merged into the giant illusory hand. When it slammed the azure sword, a massive bang rang out. The sword shook. One by one, the ghost images popped and vanished. The ghost images disintegrated, cracks covering the sword's surface. The illusory hand passed through and continued toward Li. No escape, it slammed directly into him. Blood sprayed from his mouth. He staggered, face pale. Meng Hao's 5th step placed him beside the azure sword. He reached up and pushed. A cracking sound, the sword split in half. You lose, pay up, said Meng Hao. He flicked his sleeve, sending the pieces flying to land at Li's feet. Li's face was deathly pale, coughing blood. His aura weakened. He looked at Meng Hao with disbelief and bitter anguish. He had lost. This chapter was sponsored by Hein Audiobook. Chapter 185, Gathering at the Song Clan. Silence reigned outside the battle arena. Hundreds of disciples stared at Meng Hao in shock. Seconds ticked by. Their fear transformed into respect for him. In the cultivation world, respect goes to the powerful. Meng Hao was mid-Foundation Establishment, but had vanquished Great Circle late Foundation Establishment with ease. The impression was deep. No one spoke. They watched as he left, the shy look still on his face as he walked back to Chen Fan. Chen Fan gaped for a long moment, then a smile broke out and he laughed. His laughter shattered silence. Hubbub erupted. Who is that guy? Mid-Foundation Establishment but defeated Great Circle. This power. He can't be a nobody. He seems almost like a Tao child. That magic looked like Black Civ Sex 19 Black Cloud Strikes. Discussion echoed about. Zhou Shanyu's face paled. He staggered back a few steps and stared closely at Meng Hao the first time. Previously, he'd thought Chen Fan was the one to watch, his eyes filled with venomous hatred and rage. You swindler, you pretended to be weak while knowing your power. You avoided battle to set this up. Your depravity is endless. Zhou Shanyu gnashed his teeth as Li exited face pale. He chuckled bitterly at Meng Hao with complex hatred. He still didn't understand. He'd been played. He thought he controlled the situation, yet his opponent easily tricked him. The spirit stones weren't even his. He'd borrowed from fellow disciples and had to repay with interest. His face grew even more ashen. Meng Hao coughed lightly. You insisted on the match, he said bashfully. Zhou Shanyu trembled. He flicked his sleeve, turning to leave, clearly going back on his word. Chen Fan gave a cold snort. Junior brother Zhou, the stakes matter nothing but solitary sword sect prestige means everything. Don't break your word. Instantly, all surrounding cultivators' eyes rested on Zhou Shanyu. All solitary sword sect disciples. They might not match others in skill, but upright conduct was drilled into them from joining. One's word couldn't be broken. Zhou Shanyu felt hundreds of disciples' eyes and his expression flickered. He stamped his foot angrily. Heart aching, he took off his life-saving jade pendant and threw it at Meng Hao. He also tossed out a drop of blood. He glared at Meng Hao with fury and disgrace. If he could, he'd kill Meng Hao hundreds of times. His body turned into colorful light and shot away. Meng Hao coughed lightly. Such gazes weren't unfamiliar. His eager gaze fell on Li's bag of holding with tens of thousands of spirit stones. Li, pale-faced, wondered how to repay his fellow disciples. Realizing he owed hundreds, his vision grew dim. Chen Fan walked up and grabbed the bag without politeness. Li didn't stop him, only smiled sadly. Chen Fan was turning to leave when Meng Hao coughed again. Elder brother, there's also a sword worth tens of thousands of spirit stones. Could Meng Hao forget that? With how much he cared about spirit stones and joining a sect, he could forget other things, but never spirit stones. The sword, Chen Fan said to pale Li, holding his hand out. Bitter-faced, Li produced the sword. His heart trembled as if tearing. He handed it to Chen Fan. From his expression, he was handing over his life. He glared murderously at Meng Hao, venom growing in his eyes. No shame whatsoever, he said, jaw clenched. He flicked his sleeve and left. Chen Fan snorted, then hurried away with Meng Hao and the winnings. They returned to his house, smiling. Little junior brother, we won this time. But next time, he said earnestly, don't do that. That was extremely dangerous, and now those two will try to get back at you. Meng Hao nodded, knowing Chen Fan was concerned. Elder brother, how about I take the spirit stones and you keep the jade pendant? Chen Fan thought a moment. No, I don't need it, you take it. Listen to your elder brother, take everything. This is my sect, so I have everything I need. Take the pendant, but when master emerges from meditation, return it. After all, you'll eventually be a member of the sect. Meng Hao tried convincing him to take it, but Chen Fan declined. Finally, Meng Hao collected his winnings. Chen Fan produced more alcohol. The two brothers drank and chatted about the Reliance sect. Days passed. Chen Fan's master stayed in meditation. The Song clan banquet date drew closer. Finally, one dawn, bells filled the solitary sword sect. At the mountain's bottom, people flew from all directions toward restrictive spell ground. Meng Hao flew alongside Chen Fan. He noticed an enormous teleportation portal surrounded by 9 stone pillars. Nearby, a gray-robed old man sat cross-legged, motionless. That's the portal keeper, said Chen Fan quietly. He watches the portal. Meng Hao nodded, studying the portal and surroundings. Besides Chen Fan and himself, 3 others wore solitary sword sect Taoist robes with large swords strapped on. When Meng Hao looked at them, they looked back and nodded slightly. With a smile, Meng Hao clasped hands. They smiled back. Without words, Meng Hao could tell they knew him. His match with Li had gained him prestige. Time passed, more arrived. After half an incense stick burned, about 18 were present. None very old, most around 30, some 20. They brimmed with vitality, were extraordinarily handsome, all foundation establishment. 2 were at late foundation establishment. Each looked at Meng Hao as they arrived. Some nodded, others ignored him. Elder Fan will arrive soon, whispered Chen Fan. He'll lead us through the portal to the Song clan. Your elder brother will work hard to get you a beloved. He chuckled, expression serious. Meng Hao gaped. This was the second time he had a strange feeling. Soon a beam appeared in the sky, a few dozen meters wide. An old man appeared, wearing a voluminous Taoist robe. His face was ruddy, full head of white hair. He carried a gourd of alcohol and a huge pitch-black sword. Brandy nose, reeking of alcohol. Wrinkled, messy robe, he burped. Greetings, Elder Fan, said Chen Fan and the others, clasping hands. Meng Hao bowed and clasped hands. "All right, you little brats. Let's see if any of you are lucky enough to marry that Song girl and bring honor to the solitary sword sect ancestors." The old man's sonorous voice shook Meng Hao and the ground. "I bring honor to the ancestors." His voice grew especially loud. The gray-robed man opened his eyes and slowly shook his head, finding the wording inappropriate. He said nothing. Definitely not core formation, thought Meng Hao. He'd seen nascent soul eccentrics before. This man was nascent soul stage. Chen Fan stepped forward, raising hands respectfully. "Elder Fan, this is a junior from my former sect." "Got it, no problem. Don't forget a few jugs of your master's alcohol when we return." The old man clapped Chen Fan on the shoulder, glanced at Meng Hao, and strode toward the portal. Meng Hao hesitated. "Elder brother, this trip to the Song clan." Chen Fan replied hurriedly. "The Song clan urgently needs a son-in-law. They invited the 5 sects and 2 clans. Little junior brother, if you play your cards right, you might have a chance. Whether you join the solitary sword sect or the Song clan, you'll soon have a foundation for cultivation." He grabbed Meng Hao's sleeve and dragged him toward the portal. Meng Hao hesitated, then decided. "The solitary sword sect people are here, so I can't use the meat jelly to change appearance. This isn't working how I want. Once at the Song clan, I'll find an excuse to leave." Chapter 186. Another encounter with Wang Tengf. The Song clan was one of the 3 great clans, somewhat isolated. With a history stretching tens of thousands of years, it was deeply rooted in the southern domain. It sat on the edge of a wide plain with rolling hills, few mountains. Southeast of the plain, however, was Neck of Heaven mountain range, under which flowed a river. From the sky, it resembled a woman resting her head on her arm, quite pretty and charming. The Song clan sat atop the chain. Unlike other clans, its main gate was an ancient castle connected to an enormous wall snaking through mountains, creating a spectacular sight. The capital city's castle was pitch black, resembling an enormous wild beast, filled with indescribable ferocity. First-time viewers would think the Song clan was not to be provoked. The capital city was surrounded by 81 smaller cities, constructed according to the mountain's rise and fall. Each was densely populated by clan members. In the sky above hung an enormous rotating sun and moon. When pitch black outside, the sun blazed in the Song clan. When bright and sunny outside, the moon shone in the Song clan. This sun and moon was a precious Song clan treasure. Every great sect and clan possessed valuable treasures to maintain their status and glory. The Black Civ sect had their incense burner, the solitary sword sect, its enormous sword. The Song clan's sun and moon enveloped the entire clan, transforming it into a different world than outside. This treasure likely ensured the Song clan experienced no friction with outside sects and clans for many years, holding a lofty position. They didn't provoke others, and others didn't dare provoke them. The Song clan wasn't as powerful as the solitary sword sect, nor as mysterious as the blood demon sect, not as extravagant as the violet fate sect, nor with vast magics like the golden frost sect, not as erudite as the black civ sect. Among the 3 great clans, the Song clan kept the lowest profile. Their Dao children didn't perform sensational acts. The clan didn't struggle for glory. They were quiet. What they had was information, collected over many years. They didn't provoke others, and others didn't dare provoke them. Their mountains left profound impressions. If incredible change rocked the southern domain, other sects and clans might collapse. The Song clan would likely remain. Their inconspicuousness meant few knew anything about them. This created fear and terror. For centuries, only eccentric Song won. Eccentric Song was the guy with the treasure mountain which Meng Hao looted to death. If you want a refresher on that, check out Chapter 48. Eccentric Song and Wu Dinkyu and subsequent chapters ventured out. Everyone in the southern domain knew him. He had an odd personality and collected wild beasts. His excursions gave chances to interact with other sects and clans. Within the Song clan capital city, dazzling lights flickered. People bustled preparing for an ancient Song clan tradition. Women of the Song clan weren't permitted to marry outsiders. Instead, a husband was sought from outside, who would marry into the family. Upon marriage, the son-in-law became a conclave cultivator of the Song clan. Throughout the years, many sects desired to infiltrate the Song clan. Because of this strange marriage custom, those sects had long vanished. The Song clan still remained. Of course, there were problems. Xianxia was one of the other competitors in the Blood Immortal Legacy Tournament. Her last appearance was in Chapter 130, The Perfect Foundation. stood quietly at the window. The outside world was bathed in sunlight, but inside the Song clan the sky was dark. Wind blew against her face, lifting her hair, revealing her spectacular beauty. She wore a sad, apprehensive look. Her apprehension came from her fate as a Song clan woman, melancholy for the same reason. She couldn't resist. It was useless to struggle. The Song clan's ancestral rules couldn't be changed. A woman's soft voice came from behind. We're different from other sects and clans. As a Song clan girl, maintaining purity forever is impossible. You can't change it, nor can I. A middle-aged woman gazed affectionately at Xianxia. Xianxia didn't reply. After a while, she nodded. In her mind, images from the Blood Immortal Legacy Tournament appeared. She remembered watching helplessly as her blood phoenix died, watching through tear-filled eyes as it faded. Perhaps it's just my fate. Her face filled with exhaustion, yet exhaustion didn't mar her beauty, it gave birth to tender beauty. The woman behind could sense what Xianxia felt. She stepped forward and stroked her long, beautiful hair. It is fate, but not destiny, a mission. A mission from the Song clan of the Southern Domain. 3. This part contains a play on words of sorts in Chinese. The characters for fate, destiny, and mission are Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, and Chinese letter, respectively. As you can see, they all share the same component, the character Chinese letter, which can have different meanings depending on the context or the other characters it's paired with. The destruction of the Southern Domain. Gather 100 clans, fuse their bloodlines, evade the palace of the heavens. Xianxia murmured words she'd heard since childhood, but father said no power in the entire Southern Domain could cause its destruction. Nothing in the eastern lands could either. She looked back. That's a legend from ancient times. Mother doesn't know what it means. Mother and daughter were silent. Outside the Song clan, the sun blazed. On the plains below, glittering light grew intense over 10 breaths, then faded, revealing a dozen people. Meng Hao sucked in a breath and rubbed his nose. Teleportation didn't suit his body. He looked around and noticed darkness ahead. A huge mountain range hung over which was a moon. He gaped at the bizarre sight. Next to him, Chen Fan sighed. We're in Song clan territory. My first time, but I've heard how astonishing they are. The old man drank from his gourd, then burped and laughed heartily. Several beams of light shot from the darkness. Brandy knows, a voice called. It didn't sound pleased. Why'd the solitary sword sect send you? I smell alcohol on you from here. Eccentric Song, how could I not come? This old Taoist will drink his fill. The old man shot into the air. Meng Hao took a deep breath. Eccentric Song filled him with fear. He looked up, making out Song clan members in the beams. One old man, though Meng Hao had never seen him, he immediately knew was Eccentric Song from the state of Zhao. I just arrived and already ran into him, thought Meng Hao. I can't stay long. If Eccentric Song finds me, consequences will be terrible. Meng Hao was about to sneak away when Chen Fan grabbed him. Little junior brother, did you see? That member of the elder generation. I don't know his name, but everyone calls him Eccentric Song. Very bizarre personality. He owns tons of wild beasts and likes betting with other sects. Meng Hao interrupted with forced smile. Elder brother, I really can't proceed. I have to. Before he finished, the old man and Eccentric Song yelled at each other. Your Song clan is stingy. 10,000 Trees Mountain has a single pearl as reward. A crappy pearl. That's the prize my solitary sword sect kids fight for. No way. It's a cubic pearl that dispels the strangest poisons, replied Eccentric Song. Refined by the sun and moon of the Song clan. Only given to Song clan sons-in-law. Even if you wanted it, you couldn't have it. What treasures compare to a Song clan girl? Are you here for a son-in-law search or treasure grabbing? Hearing this, Meng Hao's eyes flickered. Chen Fan frowned. Little junior brother, think things through, he said earnestly. You'll make friends. Li Fugui will be here. You haven't seen him years, but if you must leave, I won't stop you. Meng Hao lowered his head thoughtfully, then looked up smiling. Fine, I might as well check things out. Chen Fan smiled. He clapped Meng Hao on the shoulder, about to continue when another blinding light appeared, spreading out, attracting everyone's attention. Figures of dozens gradually became distinct. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. Chen Fan frowned. Wang clan people. Men and women looked around, eyes drawn especially to the mountain chain holding the Song clan. At the front was an old man with tranquil expression. He strode forward, looking at Eccentric Song and the old man. Fellow Taoist Fan, you arrived quickly, smelled the Song clan's alcohol. Elder Fan laughed and swigged. Not that fast. At least, not as fast as fellow Taoist Wang at Rebirth Cave. Your retreat was incredible. The Wang clan old man smiled. He didn't respond but clasped hands and bowed to eccentric Song. Behind him were Wang clan members, including Wang Tengfei IV. If you want a quick refresher on some key events regarding Wang Tengfei, you can check out Chapter 24. Who was it? Chapter 32. This finger brought me humiliation today, I cripple it. Chapter 33. Is this sword yours too? He wore a white robe with cold expression and slight grim frown, thinking something important. Handsome features, perfect disposition, giving an air of flawlessness. Next to him was Wang Zifen V. Wang Zifen is Wang Tengfei's Tao protector who almost killed Meng Hao. He was introduced in Chapter 35, I'm Not Willing, and also appeared in Chapter 119, The Legacy Shocks the Southern Domain. Proud, aloof expression as he gazed at Song Clan Mountains. His gaze shifted to the solitary sword sect group. He frowned, catching sight of Meng Hao. Looks a bit familiar. His gaze passed before he recalled, but Wang Tengfei's surprised eyes fell on Meng Hao. Disbelief appeared. Meng Hao looked back. Different groups hundreds of meters apart, yet their gazes locked. Like years ago in the Reliance sect. Chapter 187, Good Old Fatty. Meng Hao, thought Wang Tengfei, eyes shining mysteriously. Pain stabbed his right index finger, pitch black with pulsating black aura. Seeing Meng Hao here was unexpected. Years had passed, but he recognized him immediately. This damned cultivator from the state of Zhao had stolen his legacy and wrecked his plans. Seeing Meng Hao, Wang Tengfei's breath quickened. He'd assumed Meng Hao disappeared with the state of Zhao. How could he appear here? With the solitary sword sect, many thoughts rushed through his mind. Then he recovered and looked away. Since he's here, I'll sacrifice him to my poisoned finger, thought Wang Tengfei. His expression calm, he exhibited the same disregard for Meng Hao as years ago. He was eternally above Meng Hao's state of Zhao or southern domain mattered not. He didn't care about Meng Hao's connections. He was Wang clan, chosen, superior. Meng Hao was an insect. He had perfect looks and flawless temperament, slowly becoming the center of attention. He smiled lightly, indifferent. The disregard in his heart transformed to scorn and arrogance. He tilted his head up. Meng Hao was nothing, crushable on a whim. Wang Zifen frowned slightly. He looked at Meng Hao again, mystery in his eyes. A smile tugged his mouth, similar to Wang Tengfei's, filled with scorn. Now he remembered years ago. The ant he almost crushed on East Mountain of the Reliance sect, stopped by He Luohua. Interesting, he chuckled quietly, only Wang Tengfei hearing. We encounter this insolent kid again. Tengfei, your chance to conclude matters from years ago. Kill him, prove what I've said is true. You're chosen, he's an insect. Wang Tengfei smiled. I've forgotten what happened that year, but I should take his head. He looked at Meng Hao again, eyes brimming with confidence in killing him easily. He looked away, ignoring Meng Hao, staring into the distance. He appeared thoughtful, wrestling with something. Don't overthink, said Wang Zifen quietly. Trust Chu Yuyan. Wang Tengfei was quiet, then growled. If I find who it was, I'll tear him into 1,000 pieces. His eyes filled with cold hatred and humiliation. Killing intent rolled out, more intense than when seeing Meng Hao. This was something he couldn't ignore. Meng Hao's expression remained unchanged. Seeing Wang Tengfei wasn't unexpected, but various emotions bubbled up. The enmity between them didn't matter much anymore. Years had passed. Meng Hao felt he'd been too hot-blooded in youth. He was partially wrong. Now Meng Hao was mid-foundation establishment, his battle prowess matching Dao children, though few knew it. If he defeated Wang Tengfei in Qi condensation, now it wasn't worth thinking about. What concerned him most was the Song clan's search for a husband and the cubic pearl eccentric Song mentioned. It could dispel the strangest poisons, making Meng Hao's heart palpitate eagerly. He wasn't sure if it could dispel resurrection lily poison, but the Song clan offering it as a prize meant it was no ordinary object. If it can dispel the poison, maybe I don't need to infiltrate the Violet Fate sect. Staying in the solitary sword sect wouldn't be bad. His heart pounded. His next hurdle was core formation, a difficult bridge. A powerful sect would help. After a long moment, his eyes filled with determination. Up above, eccentric Song, elder fan, and the Wang clan nascent soul cultivator turned into prismatic light beams shooting toward the darkness. Two other Song clan members came with eccentric Song. They split, one to the solitary sword sect group, one to the Wang clan group. They clasped hands, bowed, smiling. Fellow Taoists of solitary sword sect and Wang clan, follow us. We'll enter Song clan mountains together. Everyone flew up. Solitary Sword Sect and Wang clan members were acquainted. The two groups merged. Talking and laughing, they became light beams shooting toward the Song clan. Meng Hao and Chen Fan were on the edge, distance from Wang clan members. Wang Tengfei flew a long, cold expression. He frowned, lost in thought, ignoring Meng Hao. They flew fast, soon reaching where outside brightness gave way to Song clan darkness. The instant they entered, Meng Hao's heart leaped. A major difference. The spiritual energy here could be felt and absorbed. This unexpected discovery shook Meng Hao's mind and heart. After years of cultivation, he kept feelings from his face. I can absorb spiritual energy here, perfect for cultivation. This exceeded his imagination. He was preparing to absorb when a thought struck him. He stopped. Caution was a tool Meng Hao developed escaping snares and traps. He'd be cautious here too. He looked around. Clues emerged. As solitary sword sect disciples flew forward, frowns appeared. "We can't absorb the spiritual energy," Chen Fan whispered. "I heard the Song clan is strange. Only Song clan members can absorb via breathing exercises. Other sects and clans can't. Not forbidden, just can't absorb." More time passed. Seeing mountains and cultivator-filled cities pass below, mystery filled Meng Hao. After many mountains, they reached the Song clan capital. An enormous square held many outside cultivators. Golden Frost Sect and Blood Demon Sect members were present. Activity and conversation filled the place. Before the Solitary Sword Sect and Wang clan cultivators landed, a loud voice rose. "It's 100% true. Jade won. Jade, of course, is the guy who saw Meng Hao and Chu Yuyan together, which happened in chapter 136. Jade saw everything. That day, Chu Yuyan wore a man's garment. She was intimate with the male cultivator. You don't believe me? Jade swear. If my words are false, gouge my eyes out." A young cultivator spoke passionately, spit flying. He gazed at Song clan members with shining eyes. Gesticulating wildly, jumping, he animated his story. Dozens of Song clan members watched in astonishment. Blood Demon Sect members sat quietly, cross-legged. Among them was Li Shiki too. Li Shiki is the Blood Demon Sect Dao child who appeared in chapter 175. Li Shiki, dressed in white. Next to Li Shiki sat two people. One was Sang Luo's brother, the other Wang Yaokai III. Wang Yaokai was one of the group of 4 young people brought to the Reliance sect in chapter 1. The others in the group were Meng Hao, Fatty, Li Fugui, and Little Tiger Dong Hu. Wang Yaokai's last appearance was in chapter 130, The Perfect Foundation. Wang Yaokai watched quietly the Golden Frost sect group. Among them was a rather fat fellow with pimples, not very tall, smiling complacently at Jade, Li Fugui. When they'd run into each other earlier, Fatty was surprised. Wang Yaokai responded coldly and pretended not to know him. Fatty wasn't sure what to think and could only sigh inwardly. "Chu Yuyan's expression was wonderful," continued Jade. "That male cultivator was extraordinarily handsome, a dragon amongst men. They embraced, exchanged sweet words. Their hands groped frantically as they panted." Jade grew more excited. Li Fugui cleared his throat and spoke loudly. "I can bear witness. I was present. I plan to speak my mind. As you fellow Taoists know, Chu Yuyan is Wang Tengfei's beloved, and Wang Tengfei and I are the closest of friends. So when I saw what was happening, I wanted to speak, but you can't imagine how they looked. The feelings between them were clearly true love." His voice rang out. Song clan members' faces filled with strange expressions. They knew Fatty, a Golden Frost sect member no one dared provoke, a sect treasure with extremely high seniority. Offending him would arouse the entire Golden Frost sect's wrath, like rubbing a cat's hair backward. The Golden Frost sect had 18 bloodline legacies. Combined, they wielded great Dao reserve power. Rumors said it could slay immortals. For many years the sect only had 17. The last disappeared. No matter how hard they searched, it couldn't be found. No one could accept it, so the ultimate power couldn't be unleashed. Then Li Fugui proved perfectly suited to accept it. He became a sect treasure. The sect priest treated him very amiably and protectively. The entire sect was at his beck and call. Furthermore, Fatty didn't like cultivation, nor wanted a Dao protector. To protect him, large Golden Frost sect disciple groups accompanied him whenever he went out. The sect worried constantly he'd be harmed. Once, after someone provoked Li Fugui, the sect priest personally slaughtered an entire sect. Afterward, he proclaimed in the southern domain, anyone touching Li Fugui would provoke the entire Golden Frost sect's unbridled fury. Chapter 188, True Love is Priceless. Li Fugui opposed Wang Tengfei and wouldn't let him off the hook. Whether inside or outside the sect, He constantly said sarcastic things about him. This made Wang Tengfei furious, but he couldn't do anything. Offending Li Fugui wasn't an option. Their feud was junior generation trifles. Li Fugui was too important to the Golden Frost sect. The difference between his importance and Wang Tengfei's importance to the Wang clan was immeasurable. Fatty suddenly leaped onto the table, embarrassing his fellow Golden Frost sect members. They coughed lightly and watched as he cried out, "Ah, true love. Fellow Taoists, could I not see such a thing? It was definitely true love. How could I, Li Fugui, split apart such an affectionate couple? Would I do that for good-for-nothing Wang Tengfei, disturb a scene of true love? Never, I could never. There's a saying about love transcending something or other, I forgot. Anyway, someone once told me something. Actually, my best friend, the person I admire most, told me love is the most valuable thing in the world, worth more than millions of spirit stones." His mouthful of extraordinarily large teeth became visible. He began choking up and crying aloud. Song clan members smiled wryly. Blood Demon sect cultivators eyed Fatty strangely. Li Shiki frowned but said nothing. Wang Yaokai maintained silence, though a slight smile appeared. "Therefore," continued Fatty, growing excited, "I pretended not to see them. But Wang Tengfei is really useless. He's completely shameless. Anyone could see true love. In his place, I'd smile and hand over the beauty. That unknown cultivator, appearance, cultivation base, everything, is clearly above and beyond Wang Tengfei, sadly." Suddenly, an infuriated shout came from midair. "Lifugu." Killing intent rolled from Wang Tengfei as he shot from the floating group like a sharpened sword toward Li Fugui. The Golden Frost sect disciples behind Li Fugui leaped with amazing speed. A tall, strapping man let out a cold harumph and lifted a fist into the air. Ripples spread, roar filled the air. Wang Tengfei's expression flickered. Wang Zifen exploded at incredible speed, appearing before Wang Tengfei, waving both hands forward. A boom, Wang Zifen's face drained. He grabbed Wang Tengfei and retreated, glancing murderously at the large man. "Members of the Wang clan, conduct yourself with dignity," said the large man coolly. Core formation power rolled out. Meng Hao's group descended. Meng Hao had a strange expression and coughed lightly. He looked at Fatty hiding behind the large man. Fatty's words were embarrassing, leaving Meng Hao feeling guilty. "See," said Chen Fan quietly. "Li Fugui is significant in the Golden Frost sect. Wang Tengfei's situation is deserving of sympathy. Little junior brother, have you seen Chu Yuyan? I'm curious which sect that cultivator is from." Yeah, I saw her before," said Meng Hao hesitantly. Chen Fan sighed. "I hope to meet that guy one day. He must be brilliant to snatch Chu Yuyan from Wang Tengfei. Such skill, he must be a man of character." Such skill, such skill. Meng Hao felt guilty. Lowering his head, he edged backward. He looked at the crowd and suddenly noticed Wang Yaokai. He stared in shock. Wang Yaokai sat taciturnly, avoiding his eyes. "Wang Tengfei, do you dare attack me?" said Fatty, sticking his head out and pointing. "Your granny, you dare. By the 5 sects and 3 clans seniority rules, I'm your master uncle. Do you dare bully your seniors?" Fatty slapped his bag of holding, produced a spirit stone, popped it in his mouth. Crunching sounds echoed as he crushed it, quite ferocious. After crushing it, Fatty extended his hand. The big man produced a jade bottle with wry smile, handed it to Fatty. Fatty popped it in his mouth. "Li Fugui, you're too excessive." Wang Tengfei ground his teeth. Fatty closed his eyes. "True love exists between them. Do you understand true love? Your wife Chu Yuyan and another man share true love. I've seen it. Why interfere?" People laughed. Wang Tengfei's face grew enraged. "If you understood, true love, it's priceless. I admire that fellow Taoist. He's so skilled, handled things masterfully." As Fatty went on, Meng Hao edged backward, but not fast enough. Jade stared at him, disbelief and astonishment covering his face. Meng Hao's heart thumped. He set this in motion but never imagined seeing such a scene. He wanted to hide, but Jade raised his voice. "It's him," he shouted, pointing at Meng Hao. "It's him, that's the cultivator I saw with Chu Yuyan." Jade lived up to his name, Big Mouth. Not only did he like to gossip, he had a very loud voice. His voice rang clearly. Everyone's attention followed his finger to Meng Hao. Meng Hao's face flickered. Surrounding solitary sword sect disciples stared in shock and unconsciously edged away. Soon, only he and Chen Fan remained. Chen Fan gaped numbly. He recovered quickly but also edged away. He didn't want romantic scandal misunderstandings. If anyone bullied Meng Hao, he'd assist instantly, but this was a romantic scandal. As he edged backward, Chen Fan's eyes glowed brightly. Both disbelief and admiration filled them. As Jade pointed, all solitary sword sect disciples stared. So did Wang clan, Song clan, and blood demon sect cultivators. Everyone looked at Meng Hao. Li Shiki had a strange expression. She denoticed Meng Hao moments ago. Now she snorted, turning to ignore him. Wang Yaokai stared in shock. Wang Tengfei stood mutely, glaring at Meng Hao. Veins bulged on his face, blood veins in his eyes. He thought back to the flying rain dragon legacy, the Reliance Inner Sect training, his feelings in the cave. His humiliation and rage billowed to the heavens. Complete silence, all eyes on Meng Hao. For days, rumors about Chu Yuyan and a strange man had spread through the 5 sects and 3 clans. Started in the Golden Frost sect. The rumor made sense, vivid. No one knew, everyone wondered who was the strange man. Now here in front of all, Meng Hao was pointed out. Fatty stared in shock. He stood blankly, then rubbed his eyes vigorously. Suddenly, he looked excited. He was about to rush over when a dozen colorful beams approached. Violet Fate sect. Chu Yuyan wasn't with them, but 2 people Meng Hao recognized were there. Qian Shuihan and Lu Song won. Qian Shuihan and Lu Song were the guys who paid an exorbitant amount of spirit stones and treasures to get Meng Hao's ordinary iron spear. It happened in Chapter 55. Overbearing, now an early Foundation establishment. They flew on either side of a cool expression young man, radiating late Foundation establishment power, respected among the disciples. At the same time, 10 more beams appeared. Black Civ sect, beautiful Hanbei too. Hanbei's last appearance was in Chapter 164, was among them, dressed in men's clothing but clearly a woman. She chatted and laughed with a Song clan member as she flew down. Violet Fate and Black Civ arrivals normally brought interactions, but a strange atmosphere filled the air. Most just glanced at the new arrivals. Jode cried out again, louder. "It's him, the cultivator I saw with Chu Yuyan. She was putting on his clothes." There's a vast difference between wearing his clothes and putting on his clothes. Violet Fate sect cultivators stopped and stared at Meng Hao. As Violet Fate disciples, they knew the rumors about Chu Yuyan. Qian Shuihan and Lu Song's eyes widened in shock, then grew hateful. Years since they'd seen Meng Hao. The blow that year was enormous. People still talked about it. Hatred seeped into their bones. Greatest humiliation ever. Qian Shuihan stared, breathing heavily. Killing intent roiled in Lu Song's eyes. "Damn it, it's you. It's you." The 2 roared, filling spectators with more shock. Chu Yuyan's details weren't clear, but these 2's rage was clearly serious. They hated Meng Hao down to their bones. This chapter was sponsored by Joseph Apor, Lim Derrick, Gary Cosby, Dewi Suryon, and Vidya Patty. Chapter 189. All the enemies arrive. Meng Hao smiled wryly. His spot had grown empty, making him conspicuous. His smile grew bitter, he sighed. "If I'd known this would happen, I wouldn't have let Jode go. AI are all my enemies appearing today." He coughed and rubbed his nose. He felt he'd done too much over the past years. Now victims were accusing him. "Damn you, Meng Hao," howled Qian Shuihan. "I'll never forget the iron spear." He stepped forward. Lu Song's eyes were red, years of derision for the incident. They wished to seek revenge. The state of Zhao had disappeared, presumably Meng Hao with it. They'd never imagined encountering him. Vengeance immediately filled their hearts. Wang Tengfei stepped forward, face filled with murder. "Meng Hao, I loathed you in the state of Zhao. Explain about Chu Yuyan." Wang Tengfei felt like an object of laughter. He couldn't accept it. He wanted to slay Meng Hao. "What a lively scene, Brother Meng," came a voice from the Black Civ sect. "Hanbei, I never imagined finding you here. So many interesting stories," she sighed. "Don't forget our deal." She covered her mouth, laughed, winked. Her words made eyes glitter. Meng Hao seemed to provoke interest after interest. People who'd never heard of him became intensely interested. Buzz of conversation filled the air. A voice from the blood demon sect, Li Shiki. "Fellow Taoist Meng Hao, you have so many interesting stories, but I'm curious, what happened to that annoying hat of yours?" Hard to tell what she thought, but her eyes shone with interest. Chen Fan stood gaping. He took a deep breath, indescribable admiration in his eyes. Fatty looked excitedly at Meng Hao. Wherever Meng Hao went, he attracted attention. Same as Reliance sect. "No wonder he's the elder brother," thought Fatty, taking a deep breath. His admiration reached heights. He wanted to fall to his knees. Meng Hao coughed dryly and smiled bitterly. He felt guilty, but before responding, 10 beams appeared in the distance. The Li clan. Now all 5 sects and 2 other clans had arrived. In the middle was Li Dai one. Li Dai's last appearance was in Chapter 134, 8th Demon Sealing Hex. His arm had been replaced. A Dao child couldn't marry into the Song clan, obviously not here for the search. But as soon as the Li clan touched down, his eyes fell on Meng Hao. He gaped. His cultivation base rippled, great circle late foundation establishment aura filled the square. "So, you finally appear," he said grimly, stepping toward Meng Hao. Fierce killing intent emanated, obviously some big secret between them. Their blood immortal legacy tournament fight had created enormous enmity that only death would erase. Finding Meng Hao here made Li Dai's killing intent explode. Everyone else clamored in excitement and shock. First Chu Yuyan, then Wang Tengfei's murder intent, then the Violet Fate sect and an iron spear, then an agreement with Black Civ Hanbei, then Blood Demon Li Shiki, now the Li clan Dao child. How's he gotten into so many situations? He's provoked everybody. Why haven't we heard of him? What's going on, Meng Hao? He really pisses people off. Of the 5 sects and 3 clans, only the Solitary Sword sect and Song clan aren't involved. He arrived with Solitary Sword, so no issue there. But the Song clan, he's so good at pissing people off, did he offend them? Fatty let out a roar and charged to Meng Hao's side, face filled with excitement. "Meng Hao, I've missed you to death." He hugged Meng Hao, tears streaming. Years had passed. He'd grown stouter now. Meng Hao smiled bitterly. Everything happening was because of Fatty. "Meng Hao, will you give an explanation?" Wang Tengfei's face was extremely grim. He felt wearing an enormous green hat too. As I mentioned in a previous footnote, the green hat is a symbol in Chinese culture which implies you're being cheated on. More information here, filled with humiliation. He stepped toward Meng Hao. Li Dai stepped forward. "You haven't explained that day, now you have the chance." "Damn you, Meng Hao, we resolve our enmity today." Kai and Shuhin and Lu Song walked toward him. Chaos seemed imminent. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. Fatty spun and roared. "Meng Hao is my brother. Who dares attack?" Golden Frost sect disciples exchanged glances, strode next to Fatty. The big man shook his head. Wang Tengfei frowned. Chen Fan strode forward. "Meng Hao is my little junior brother. Fellow Taoists, if you insist, Chen Fan must stand." His flying dagger appeared. Kaian and Lu hesitated. Hanbei laughed. "Brother Meng, considering our friendship, how could I not join?" Wang Yaokai stood silently from the Blood Demon sect and walked next to Meng Hao. Li Shiki's cold voice rang. "Your hat is annoying, but for junior brother Wang Yaokai, the Blood Demon sect stands by you. Let's see who dares touch you." People surrounding Meng Hao made Li Dai's brow furrow. Delicate situation. No killing here, they were in the Song clan. He never imagined Meng Hao would have such connections. Golden Frost sect, Solitary Sword sect, Blood Demon sect, Black Civ sect, all supported him. Wang Tengfei's eyes shone coldly, glaring murderous at Meng Hao. Shock filled his heart. How could this Reliance sect disciple accumulate such influence? Chen Fan and Li Fugui, Ad Hanbei and Li Shiki, who knew why they supported him, but Meng Hao had made it impossible for anyone to attack. Kai and Shuhin and Lu Song were nervous. They never imagined Meng Hao would reappear with such connections. The square grew silent. An impatient voice came from off in the distance. "What are you kids up to? Who riled everyone up? Simmer down. The Song clan throws a feast to search for a husband. Why stir trouble?" Eccentric Song's voice, accompanied by other eccentric members. Smiles covered their faces. They didn't care. Old-timer's appearance caused tension to dissipate. Everyone returned to positions. Meng Hao lowered his head to leave with Chen Fan. Suddenly, eccentric Song's eyes fell on Meng Hao. "Hold on," he said. Meng Hao froze, sighing. With bitter laugh he turned to face eccentric Song. His mind spun for escape. He placed his hand on his bag of holding. He might use the good luck charm. "Kid, why do you look so familiar?" Eccentric Song's brow furrowed. "Elder Song, sir," cried Lu Song. "This is the state of Zhao person with the iron spear." Eccentric Song's eyes went wide. He stared at Meng Hao. "So it's you, you little brat." The surrounding cultivators gasped. Previously they thought the Song clan was the only one Meng Hao hadn't offended. All looked at him with admiration. Meng Hao hadn't offended a junior Song clan member, but a nascent soul eccentric. Meng Hao smiled, clasping hands and bowing to eccentric Song. Meng Hao of the junior generation greets Master Song of the elder generation. "Senior, your cultivation base is extraordinary, demeanor heavenly. That year, I of the junior generation was ignorant and foolish. Senior, you have noble character and sterling integrity. I truly hope that on this joyous occasion for the Song clan, you won't cause difficulties for the junior generation." Eccentric Song gave Meng Hao a long, meaningful look. Although he said nothing, sometimes you speak volumes without words. Wang Tengfei's eyes glittered. He stepped toward Meng Hao. Elder Song, there is enmity between I of the junior generation and this person. He humiliated my intended beloved. In the presence of all fellow Taoists, I implore you to permit me to end the enmity this day. Meanwhile, in the Song clan capital city's towering castle, Songjia watched a glittering screen showing the scene below. A smile covered her face as she paid close attention to Meng Hao's scholarly figure. What an interesting person. How could he offend so many people, even uncle? The middle-aged woman next to her laughed, a warm expression on her face. Why have you taken a fancy to him? This chapter was sponsored by TF. Chapter 190, Respected Senior. No, said Songjia quickly, face reddening. She was innately beautiful with tender personality. The woman laughed, looking at her lovingly, said nothing. Songjia continued lightly, I just think he's interesting. He offended so many people, yet so many stand by him. And he doesn't look like a cultivator, he looks like a scholar. The woman laughed again, expression growing gentler. She lifted her right hand. A flaming jade slip appeared, burned into nothing. Suddenly, a slight tremble ran through Song clan mountains. So minor, only nascent soul and above noticed. Up in the dark sky, the moon shimmered. Countless magical symbols appeared in the moon, seeming to deduce past and future. After a long moment, they faded. Time seemed to move in reverse in front of the woman. The jade slip seemed to unburn, reappearing. Songjia watched with anticipation. All right, said the woman, pressing her finger on the slip. Let me look at this person's past. The slip projected a screen. A small county appeared, a boy sitting at a window reading by lamplight. As he read, he shook his head and fanned himself with a feather fan. Summer, obviously. The boy was Meng Hao. The screen flickered. Meng Hao wore a neat scholar's robe. He walked out and stood against a wall, looking shifty-eyed. Soon a sedan emerged from the opposite courtyard. He craned his neck, an excited expression on his face. 1. In case you forgot about the sedan scenario, it was alluded to in Chapter 45, a look back at the mortal world after 3 years. The screen shimmered. Meng Hao stood on Mount Dacheng. He sighed and tossed a gourd bottle into the river. 2. The scene from Mount Dacheng was obviously in Chapter 1, Scholar Meng Hao. Next, he was in the Reliance sect, holding a medicinal pill aloft, face anxious as he gave it away. 3. The scene of giving away the medicinal pill was from Chapter 5. This kid isn't bad. Songjia laughed aloud. The woman smiled and shook her head. Next was Meng Hao's shop on the plateau, his shy, bashful smile selling medicinal pills at exorbitant rates. 4. Meng Hao's business schemes were in Chapter 11, Pill Cultivation Workshop Outlet, as well as subsequent chapters. Many images flashed quickly. The woman frowned. Next, Eccentric Song on the mountaintop, Meng Hao running with the iron spear. Meng Hao in the cultivator city, dealing with Lu and Song for the spear. Then all the bloody events. Songjia laughed continuously. This Meng Hao is awful, nothing like a scholar. Her laughter made her eyes like crescent moons. Images became blurry. He was in the southern domain. Suddenly the jade slip crumbled. It cracked instantly. A woman's cold snort came from far away. It filled the room, the entire Song clan. The woman's face filled with shock. She coughed blood. She grabbed astonished Songjia and staggered backward, disbelief covering her face. All Song clan mountains trembled. The moon suddenly exploded with blinding light. It trembled and darkened as if forcefully suppressed. The seemingly endless mountains trembled and then, one by one, sank down an entire inch, as if pushed by incredible force. This was a warning demonstration of power by someone. If they wished, they could wipe out the Song clan mountains. All nascent soul cultivators trembled and spit blood. Deep within Song clan mountains, near Dao reserves, roaring arose. It didn't disseminate outward, only certain people sensed it. In the deepest, most remote location was a stone pillar. Atop it was a corpse, rather half of one. The bottom half was gone. The corpse's eyes snapped open. Peak Dao-seeking aura exploded. The corpse trembled as if unable to withstand the immense power bearing down. Respected senior, calm your anger. The Song clan is at fault. If you know you're at fault, correct it, came a woman's transmitted voice, clearly irritated. Your Song clan has the tradition of marrying daughters. I suggest she be a maidservant. The corpse hesitated. Respected senior. What? The Song clan of the eastern lands desire this honor but are unable. Do you truly dare refuse me? The woman's voice transmitted. The entire Song clan mountain shook. sank 3 more inches. Without hesitation, the corpse said, "Respected senior, we shall do as you bid." The woman's voice faded. Back in the capital city, Songjia's face was pale white. Next to her, her mother panted, blood oozed from her mouth. "Jair, this person cannot be provoked. This person is." Before she finished, her body shook. Divine sense seemed to transmit into her mind. She didn't continue, eventually looked at pale Songjia, complex expression on her face. Everything in the Song clan went unnoticed by Meng Hao and everyone. The ground shaking made everyone's faces flicker, especially the nascent soul eccentrics. Eccentric Song's body trembled. He coughed blood. His body continued trembling. He coughed a second time, then a third. In total, 7 mouthfuls. He staggered, pale, filled with astonishment. He was the only one who coughed 7 mouthfuls. The illusory image of a woman appeared in the square, invisible to all except the Song clan's most powerful, the peak Dao-seeking corpse. Only he sensed her rippling aura as she arrived. From the moment she appeared, her eyes riveted on Meng Hao, filled with kindness, tender affection, and love. After a long moment, the situation returned to normal. Everyone was shocked, deathly silence filling the air. Nascent soul cultivators looked pale. Eccentric Song's face was deathly white. He was nearly witless. He didn't know what happened, nor that the Song clan had been shaken. Panting, he wiped blood from his mouth. Suddenly, his body shook as a voice filled his mind. Veneration filled him, the spirit-severing stage patriarch of the Song clan. A transmission of divine will from the patriarch, relaying orders from the Dao Reserve Corps. All Song clan nascent soul cultivators received the message. Meng Hao is not to be provoked. Amidst the silence, Wang Tengfei's voice sounded. "Meng Hao, you don't have qualifications to refuse a battle today." He leaped up, striding toward Meng Hao, cultivation base erupting. Power exceeding early foundation establishment soared higher. Wang Tengfei's Dao pillars hummed with mid-foundation establishment energy. Meng Hao's eyes flickered. Wang Tengfei's right hand lifted, black tendrils circulated around his finger. His eyes were calm. "In the Reliance sect, you stole my belongings and wrested my inner sect position. In the southern domain, you insulted me. Do you qualify to be Wang Tengfei's archenemy?" His hair whipped madly. A mysterious black glow emanated from his poisoned finger. "You don't deserve to be my archenemy. You were an insect then, still an insect now. Today, you're a blood sacrifice to my poisoned finger." His words echoed the square. "Are you finished?" said Meng Hao coolly. He strode forward, lifting his right hand and striking out. His 4 perfect Dao pillars' power congealed into his palm. Not a strand leaked. A roaring filled the air. The surrounding cultivators watched, completely focused. Only Han Bei and Li Shiki, as well as Chen Fan, looked strangely at blustering Wang Tengfei. Fatty looked extremely nervous. The big man held him back, otherwise he'd join Meng Hao. Amidst the roaring boom, Wang Tengfei tumbled backward, blood spraying. The palm blow had been a slap. The sound rang out as Wang Tengfei's teeth shattered. He flopped backward, shock on his face. "Impossible." Meng Hao strode forward, striking again. A boom, more blood sprayed. This slap struck the other side. "Impossible." Wang Tengfei's face paled, his eyes filling with frenzied rage, not confusion. Humiliation washed away everything. He stared murderously at Meng Hao and howled. Wang Zifen began to move, as did the frowning old nascent soul cultivator from the Wang clan. Eccentric Song's eyes flickered. Discomfort and disbelief covered his face as he reached out to prevent both from doing anything. Chapter 191, Defeat After Defeat. The Wang clan nascent soul cultivator turned his head and stared at eccentric Song. Meng Hao strode toward the retreating Wang Tengfei and grabbed his index finger. "So this is the finger I decimated that time," he said coolly. Wang Tengfei's eyes flashed with hatred and pleasant surprise. He had developed this poisoned finger at great cost. He could have regrown a normal finger, but instead mastered perseverance, enduring the pain to cultivate a poisoned finger. In his estimation, it was a metamorphosis. He had reached this in a flash of enlightenment. He would transform his defeat into brilliant glory. The pain had tormented him, but he endured it and created a poisoned finger that became a personal treasure. Wang Tengfei knew that all people endured setbacks. To transform one into a treasure made life glorious. Maybe he was right, but sometimes fate can be cruel. Today, he ran into Meng Hao. Meng Hao hadn't acted intentionally, but the 3-colored resurrection lily not only made him immune to all poisons, it also made his body hypertoxic. When Wang Tengfei saw Meng Hao grab his poisoned finger, he began to laugh, a mix of hatred and carefree cheer. He imagined Meng Hao withering and transforming into a pool of blood. However, his laughter screeched to a stop. His finger vanished in Meng Hao's hand, and after a few breaths a popping sound echoed out. A black mist appeared, trembling as if afraid to draw near. Meng Hao loosened his grip. Wang Tengfei's entire body shook and blood sprayed from his mouth. He staggered backward, gazing numbly at where his index finger had been. He thought back to 7 or 8 years ago when he'd been defeated. He'd always believed he was chosen, his opponent merely an insect. A fluke, he'd thought. But now he'd reached foundation establishment, and his opponent was far beneath him. But today... "You're right, you and I aren't archenemies," said Meng Hao indifferently, a hint of bashfulness crossing his features as he looked at the pale Wang Tengfei. "That term is too meaningful. It doesn't suit our relationship." He made no attempt to kill Wang Tengfei. Killing him now would cause too many complications. Most importantly, Meng Hao always seemed to end up with things that belonged to Wang Tengfei, a strange fact that made him even less willing to kill him. Everything surrounding them was quiet. The invisible woman gazed tenderly at Meng Hao. When she saw him dissolve the poisoned finger, her smile transformed into a look of love. Seeing Meng Hao's shy smile, the woman laughed and shook her head. Her loving gaze grew stronger. "This kid has always been a player," the woman said quietly. "He just can't help but make girls like him." She glanced at Han Bei and then Li Shiki, as if she were sizing them up as potential daughters-in-law. "The Han clan bloodline. Not up to standard, she won't do. As for this other one, she seems interesting. She's powerful enough at least." Smiling shyly, Meng Hao returned to his place beside Chen Fan. Fatty ran over, giving Meng Hao a wink. Pale-faced, Wang Tengfei wordlessly returned to his spot next to Wang Zifen and laughed bitterly, seemingly having lost all will to fight. Wang Zifen said nothing, his eyes radiating killing intent as he looked at Meng Hao. Meng Hao looked up, his eyes locking onto Wang Zifen. When their gazes met, Meng Hao thought back to that year when he sat on top of the East Mountain in the Reliance sect. Today, however, he was not someone who Wang Zifen could kill with a single glance. "I wonder if I'll be able to fight the core formation stage after I form my 9th perfect Tao pillar." Seeing the incredible power of his perfect Tao pillars made him eager for the perfect core. He wanted to know if he could battle core formation while still in foundation establishment. He wasn't sure, but as of this day, Wang Zifen was someone who Meng Hao decided must be killed. Seeing the coldness in Meng Hao's eyes, Wang Zifen's killing intent grew more intense. He had the feeling that if he didn't kill Meng Hao soon, he might lose his chance to do so. This Meng Hao is progressing too rapidly. Wang Zifen had to admit he had overlooked Meng Hao. Bells rang out, filling the capital city. Multicolored beams of light filled the sky. The entire Song clan passed from night to morning. In the outside world, it was now night. As the change occurred, the spiritual energy within the Song clan grew thicker. Only the Song clan members could absorb it, and Meng Hao. His eyes glittered as the spiritual energy drifted naturally into his body, strand by strand, slowly replenishing his 4 perfect Tao pillars. As it restored his nearly depleted 4 Tao pillars, the outline of a 5th began to form. Of course, it wouldn't solidify completely in such a short time. Perhaps with a prolonged stay in the Song clan it might. The bells rang out as the moon and sun alternated positions. As day and night blended, a colorful glow appeared in the air. 3 figures emerged from the light. Numerous Song clan members gazed up at the multicolored glow with reverence, and the cultivators from other sects and clans followed their gaze. The 3 figures gradually grew distinct, solidifying out of nothing. One was an old man in white robes. His smiling face betrayed no panic at the recent events in the Song clan. Next to him stood 2 handsome middle-aged men with profound cultivation bases. The old man said, "I am so grateful that all of you could join the Song clan in our search for a son-in-law. Please, let's begin." He laughed heartily and waved his right hand. The entire square trembled and countless banquet tables appeared. Suddenly they were no longer in the square or the Song clan but floating in the sky. They were surrounded by clouds and everything looked celestial in nature. Maidservants appeared, their features indistinct but figures graceful. They danced and flew, reverently placing alcohol and spirit fruits on the tables. The air filled with the sounds of wind, flowing water, and birdsong, creating an atmosphere of graceful elegance. None of the foundation establishment cultivators had ever witnessed such a sight. Some looked around, others stared at the maidservants. The nascent soul cultivators who led the various sects and clans broke out in smiles and words of admiration. Elder Song Tian's cultivation base is profound one. Song Tian's name in Chinese is Chinese letter. Song Tian's song is a common family name. Tian means heaven or day. This cosmic time-shifting truly is of the highest degree of perfection. The old man was none other than Patriarch Song Tian of the Song clan. According to the rumors, he had long since reached the spirit-severing stage. However, it was really impossible for anyone to tell for sure or even ascertain any clues. Song Tian laughed and then sat down cross-legged, followed by the two middle-aged men who accompanied him. The Wang clan nascent soul cultivator flicked his sleeve and sat next to Song Tian, his grim expression fixed on eccentric Song, still brooding over being obstructed earlier. Meng Hao sat at a banquet table with Fatty, who refused to sit with the Golden Frost sect to stay by Meng Hao's side. He chatted energetically about the Golden Frost sect, seeming unchanged from his Reliance sect days. Occasionally, he'd crunch spirit stones between his teeth. Suddenly, Fatty pulled out an extraordinary flying sword and began grinding his teeth with it. "One of my friends in the sect gave me this sword to protect myself," he said, "but when I grind my teeth with it, it doesn't feel very good. If you want it, it's yours." He offered it to Meng Hao. It just so happened to be covered with Fatty's saliva. Meng Hao hesitated. Next to Fatty, Jodea's eyes went wide. "Little Patriarch," he said, "that sword is a magical legacy weapon of the 19th bloodline." "So annoying. A magical weapon is a magical weapon. Ah, never mind. I guess I can't give this one to you, but I have some other things." He pulled out another large magical weapon whose bright glow instantly attracted attention. "Do you like this one?" said Fatty, looking pleased. His expression caused Meng Hao to smile. Chen Fan sighed, watching Fatty enviously. Knowing his importance to the Golden Frost sect, he could only shake his head. Hanbei drifted over in her men's clothing. She smiled lightly at Fatty. "Fellow Taoist Li, would you mind scooting aside? I'd really like to sit here." Fatty stared at Hanbei, then at Meng Hao. Lowering his voice, he said, "Meng Hao, this chick has pretty good skin. Between her and Chu Yuyan, who do you think is better?" Meng Hao sipped from his glass, then cleared his throat. Fatty laughed and moved aside. Hanbei sat unfazed by him. She looked at Meng Hao, blinked, and laughed. She leaned closer and whispered, "Brother Meng, how exactly are you going to thank me for the matter regarding Su Qing?" This chapter was sponsored by Hein Audiobook. Chapter 192, Games with Hanbei. "Fellow Taoist Han, what exactly do you mean?" replied Meng Hao, his expression the same as ever. Despite his calm exterior, his heart trembled. He turned to look at Hanbei and their eyes met. She was clearly watching him closely, feeling him out. If Meng Hao's expression changed even the slightest bit, Hanbei would have noticed. That, of course, was why she had moved so close to him. Hanbei was a schemer, which Meng Hao had come to understand very clearly in the Black Civ sect's blessed land. In fact, he hadn't encountered anyone among his peers who could come close to her in terms of plotting. "Brother Meng," she said with a charming smile, "there's no need to ask questions you already know the answer to. Junior sister Su was a member of the Reliance sect in the state of Zhao, and so were you." Coupled with her men's clothing, her sweet tone made her even more alluring. "Oh," replied Meng Hao, looking at her with a vague smile. His expression caused her to pause momentarily. Then she frowned, suddenly feeling nervous. "Brother Meng, it was for your sake that I helped out junior sister Su on multiple occasions. Were it not for my interference, she would have fallen under a lot of suspicion. Thankfully, I have a lot of influence in the sect, so she wasn't implicated when you took ultimate vexation." She smiled. "So, how do you plan to repay me?" Her smile was beautiful, her eyes flickering with craftiness. Despite her charming appearance, Meng Hao knew the profound depth of her scheming nature. He would never forget how she had repeatedly called out to her, "Zai, dear," before exterminating him in an instant. She leaned a bit closer to Meng Hao. From the perspective of anyone looking at them, it would definitely seem they were on quite intimate terms. "Fellow Taoist Han," he said coolly, "aren't you worried about being seen so close to me? What if the Black Civ sect suspects something? I imagine they're looking for me. After today, they'll definitely send people." His words seemed casual, but he was probing her intentions. "Brother Meng, you can just directly ask me what you want to know. There's no need to feel me out," she chuckled. She breathed out slowly, her breath brushing across him and carrying the aroma of orchids. Meng Hao frowned and edged away. Seeing him move away, Hanbei smiled thoughtfully and moved closer yet again. A delicate fragrance wafted from her. Meng Hao frowned and edged further away. Hanbei let out a soft laugh tinged with derision. "The Black Civ sect is indeed looking for you. Don't worry, the other sects don't know. The search is being done in secret, but you should be careful, she smiled, finally seeming to think she was too close and moved further away. Suddenly, Meng Hao's hand snaked out and wrapped around her supple waist, pulling her close. "How exactly did you want me to thank you?" he said. "You tell me." They were so close she could feel him breathing. They looked into each other's eyes, both warm expressions masking a combat of scheming. Hanbei suddenly looked flustered, having never anticipated such a move. She recovered quickly, however, her eyes shining with unruly beauty. "It's simple," she said gently. "Give me the jade page you took from within the square cauldron. I want the entire thing, that's all." Her body twisted imperceptibly, and she pulled away to stand up. "Brother Meng, think about it carefully," she said with a smile. Meng Hao looked back with a vague smile. After a moment, he lifted his hand to his bag of holding and produced a jade slip, tossing it toward her. She frowned. This was an ordinary jade slip, not the jade page she wanted. However, she knew Meng Hao was deeply skilled in scheming. She accepted it, scanning with spiritual sense. A strange expression flickered across her face before returning to normal. She gave Meng Hao a deep look, then smiled widely. She nodded and turned back toward the Black Sieve sect. Meng Hao lifted his glass and sipped. The jade slip contained only an image of her killing Zai Jai, which Meng Hao had secretly recorded. Actually, even if Hanbei hadn't come looking for him, he would have thought of a way to get in touch with her. He had prepared the jade slip as a way to get information, and also as a bit of insurance. Fatty watched Hanbei leave, then peppered Meng Hao with questions. Chen Fan looked at Meng Hao admiringly, realizing that with his junior brother's skills, there was no need to arrange a marriage for him. Some time passed. The bells rang out again and the multicolored glow appeared. Two figures emerged, a man and a woman. The man was handsome, tall, and slender with eyes like lightning. He wore a white robe and long black hair that gave him a demonic beauty. He smiled and raised clasped hands in greeting. "It's the Song clan Dao Child Song Yunshu. 1. Song Yunshu's name in Chinese is Chinese letter. Song Yunshu Song, of course, is a family name. Yun means cloud. Shu means book. Song Yunshu has an extraordinary cultivation base. As the Dao Child of the Song clan, he is the #1 figure amongst their foundation establishment experts. The girl next to him is Song Jia. She's the girl the Song clan is finding a husband for." Meng Hao looked up, his gaze sweeping across the man and woman as they emerged from the glow. Song Jia was petite and delicate, with long hair and clear, fair skin. She exuded gentle femininity and had beautiful, bright eyes, not scheming like Hanbei, admonishing like Li Shiki, or cold like Su Qing. Her eyes shone with gentleness. Anyone who looked at Song Jia would sense her purity and gentleness. She seemed like the type who would never lose her temper. As she gazed out at the crowd, her eyes met Meng Hao's for a brief moment. Song Tian laughed and called out, "The hour has arrived. From generation to generation, the Song clan has practiced cultivation without excessive formalities. We prefer simplicity. Heroes and talented individuals of the various sects and clans, welcome to the Song clan. Except for those here to observe, you are all here for the same reason. I won't waste time with further explanations." He waved his right hand and the clouds churned. A massive vortex appeared, revealing a strange world beyond. Within lay a vast sea with an enormous tree rising from its center. The colossal tree towered higher than mountains. Thick vines wrapped around its trunk, snaking toward the heavens. At its top, limbs stretched to form a mushroom-like shape. Vines hung down, some reaching into the sea. A wild wind whipped across the waters, raising seething waves. Black clouds billowed above, and lightning crashed with thunderous echoes. The banquet lay in the clouds above this world. With a laugh, Song Tian said, "At the top of this tree is the cubic pearl. Whoever acquires it first will be the newest son-in-law of this generation of the Song clan." He looked out across the crowd and at Song Jia, his eyes glowing with an elder's love for a junior. Then his gaze fell upon Meng Hao before quickly looking away. Eccentric Song hadn't spoken during this entire time. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Hanbei didn't move, but the Black Sieve sect disciples around her seemed eager. They had come to win a place as the Song clan's son-in-law. Success meant instant benefit, not for the sect but for themselves. Multiple figures leaped up and flew toward the cloud vortex and the sea below. Li Dai didn't move. As a Dao child, he had come only to observe and couldn't marry into the Song clan. The rest of the Li clansmen, however, flew toward the vortex one by one. Wang Tengfei sat thoughtfully, hesitating. Wang Zifen held out a hand to bar his way. However, Wang Tengfei had made his decision. He strode forward and transformed into a colorful beam, shooting toward the vortex. His participation differed from the others. Astonishment appeared on the Violet Fate sect disciples' faces, especially their nascent soul cultivator, whose eyes flickered. The Wang clan nascent soul cultivator frowned. Fatty coughed and looked at Meng Hao, then flew up. His cultivation base hadn't reached foundation establishment yet, but he had plenty of magical items. The rest of the Golden Frost sect cultivators flew up with him, charging toward the vortex. Chen Fan and the Solitary Sword sect flew up one by one, as did the Blood Demon sect disciples, including Wang Yaokai. Li Shiki sat with a cool expression. Meng Hao looked through the cloud vortex at the sprawling sea and massive tree. His eyes narrowed as he sat thoughtfully for a moment, then stood and shot toward the vortex. The invisible woman was still there, watching Meng Hao disappear into the vortex. The tender love in her eyes grew stronger. Finally, she sighed. You must walk your path alone. Perhaps one day you will find your way to us, and then you'll understand everything. If you can't make it, Mother will wait for you to be reincarnated in the yellow springs of the underworld. Her voice soft, she closed her eyes, turned, and disappeared as if she had never been there. Monstrous waves rolled across the sea, propelled by screaming wind that threatened to blow away the approaching cultivators, making it incredibly difficult to even reach the massive tree. Compared to the tree, they were like crickets or ants, tiny to the extreme. Meng Hao looked down at the waters, his eyes narrowing. Beneath the massive waves, dark shadows swam to and fro. Danger welled up within him. The Song clan's search for a son-in-law is a trial by fire, said the patriarch. We don't want a bloody spectacle. If the danger becomes too extreme, you can forfeit with a word and be instantly teleported out. His words echoed across the sea. The wind suddenly lessened, as if afraid to interfere. Chapter 193. The Flower Blooms at Dawn. Above the sea and the enormous tree was the endlessly roiling cloud vortex. Above the cloud vortex was the banquet set by the Song clan in search of a son-in-law. Currently, the Song clan patriarch's voice was ringing out across the sea, and the invisible woman had vanished. Deep within the recesses of the Song clan mountains was where their Tao reserves were located. The corpse, composed of half a body, emitted a mysterious glow from its eyes. Hesitation flickered within the glow. Just who was she? She seems to have the spirit of an immortal but yet is not qualified to be one. She was looking toward that young man Meng Hao with deep love and affection. However, the object of her gaze was not Meng Hao but that resurrection lily inside of him. She said he would come before them and understand everything. Why did those simple words cause my hair to stand on end? The old man's eyes emanated an archaic light as he sank into thought. She said that if he failed, she would wait for him to be reincarnated in the yellow springs of the underworld. How very logical. It seems she's accustomed to such things. This is not something a cultivator can do. There is no reincarnation in cultivation. For a cultivator to attempt to reincarnate is useless. Otherwise, why would the rebirth cave have appeared? Rebirth is possible, which means the ability to live another life. However, there is no such thing as reincarnation. In terms of reincarnation, this is only possible for the legendary Resurrection Lily. The Resurrection Lily merges with a person as a form of reincarnation. This is why it's called a Resurrection Lily. Once the flower merges with a person, the person disappears, but the flower remains. However, things are never so absolute in this world. If the Resurrection Lily were to be tamed and consumed, 7-colored immortal ascension is possible. The patriarch flew up suddenly. His eyes glittered as the indistinct image of his lower half appeared. His hair whipped around him as he kneeled atop the pillar. Immortal, your origin is full of mystery. The Song clan has watched over the southern domain for generation after generation. Immortal, I beg you to clear up my confusion. He bit down on his tongue and spit up some blood from his heart. The blood flew out and instantly disappeared. However, the sun-moon treasure in the sky above the Song clan suddenly flickered, and a glow appeared that no outsider would be able to notice. It shot down through the mountains until it was directly in front of the old man. It transformed into a partially transparent figure. It was impossible to tell whether it was male or female. It was blurry as if it were both there and not there. When the old corpse caught sight of the figure, an expression of veneration appeared on his face. He knew that this was the spirit of the clan treasure. This spirit was also an ancient patriarch of the Song clan. According to legend, after achieving immortality, he had left behind a fragment of his spirit here. The figure lifted its hand and gently tapped the top of the old man's head. The man's body trembled, and suddenly his eyes shone with disbelief. He looked up and watched as the illusory figure slowly disappeared. It was as if it had never been there. The old corpse took a deep breath. The flower blooms at dawn and achieves immortality on the day of vicissitude. The mother of the resurrection lily, the dawn immortal. 1. The dawn immortal was mentioned before in multiple previous chapters. Chapter 83, Patriarch, what about disciples' poison? Chapter 88, Lord Revelation's true self. Chapter 94, you really want me to come out? Chapter 95, a rain shower, a cold spell. And Chapter 117, a tiny little punishment. This Meng Hao is too dangerous. He was silent in thought for a moment. However, he gave no orders, nor did he do anything to reverse the words he had been forced to transmit earlier by the woman. Meanwhile, in the roaring ocean beneath the cloud vortex, the wind screamed. The cultivators who had entered this place numbered in the dozens. They circled the region of the enormous tree. Whoever could break through the massive winds and actually reach the tree itself would snatch the first-place position in the race. To be able to earn a place within the Song clan would earn the right to practice cultivation within the profound clan regions. Almost all of the cultivators present thirsted for such an opportunity. That was why they were here, and that was what they were fighting for. Meng Hao, however, wasn't here to marry into the Song clan. Although this place was suitable for cultivation, he preferred not to depend on others. Without an important purpose, he liked being free to roam like the sea and sky, alone. Roaming under the heavens, enjoying the scenery, observing the beauty of earth and animals, that was life to Meng Hao. His eyes glittered as he looked at the massive tree. At its vast top lay a pearl. The others didn't value the pearl itself, but rather what it represented. Only Meng Hao cared about the former. Were it not for the pearl, Meng Hao wouldn't even be here. I hope that pearl can dispel my poison. If it can, I won't have to go through all the trouble of infiltrating the Violet Fate sect. Meng Hao's eyes flickered, and his heart trembled as he shot forward. He narrowed his eyes and stopped flying for a moment. So I can absorb spiritual energy in this place too. Furthermore, it's even more dense here than outside. What big secret does the Song clan have? How come the spiritual energy here is like that in the Blood Immortal Legacy Zone? Why can I absorb it? His eyes filled with thought, he once again shot forward at high speed. At the same time, he rotated his cultivation base. His 4 perfect Tao pillars hummed, and his body became like a black hole. Immediately, the spiritual energy in the area began to rush toward him. Meng Hao didn't suck it in with unbridled speed, but cautiously, gradually. Off in the distance, Wang Tengfei's face was grim, his heart filled with bitterness and insanity. Ever since youth, he'd been chosen. The blood of the flying rain dragon set his path as he grew. He seemed always favored by good fortune. However, thanks to his brother Wang Lihai, he couldn't become Dao child of the Wang clan. Focus drifted further away. He'd lived his childhood in his brother's shadow. He wanted to resist, fight back, exceed his brother, prove himself worthy. Because of that, he left the clan and went to the state of Zhao to find the flawless foundation. He knew staying in the Wang clan would make it hard to rise. Filled with idealism, he went to the state of Zhao to find the flawless foundation and the flying rain dragon legacy, planning to return and challenge his brother. However, Meng Hao ruined everything. He'd been utterly defeated, but he refused to give up. Thanks to Wang Zifen's encouragement and Chu Yuyan's support, he emerged from the shadows with his poisoned finger. In fact, he had achieved his cracked foundation only with Chu Yuyan's help. When his brother died in the Blood Immortal Legacy Tournament, it seemed the future opened wide. His extreme misfortune would finally birth a meteoric rise. He believed his life would finally be restored. Except subsequent events caught him unawares. To his astonishment, Wang Lihai wasn't dead. The one who died was a Dao clone created by a Wang clan patriarch. Then rumors of Chu Yuyan and a strange man spread wildfire. He couldn't tolerate it. More unbelievable still, when he asked Chu Yuyan, she wouldn't respond. It was bad enough. He could grit his teeth and endure. But here at the Song clan, he discovered the man seen with Chu Yuyan was Meng Hao. That drove him crazy. He went all out to kill Meng Hao, but that battle became the breaking point. The crushing defeat twisted his thinking, his temperament, everything in that moment. It pushed him toward insanity. I can do without the Wang clan, he thought, his eyes filled with blood veins, and cut off Chu Yuyan. I, Wang Tengfei, will tread my own path. I will take everything from Meng Hao. I will snatch it all back. His body trembled with crazed fervor as he shot through the wind toward the tree. Fatty plugged his nose against the wind as he floated. 7 or 8 Golden Frost sect disciples formed a protective ring around him. The sect lord prohibited me from marrying into the Song clan, but I figured I'd give it a shot, he said, crunching a spirit stone to pieces. The surrounding Golden Frost sect disciples could only smile bitterly. Little patriarch, you really shouldn't be doing this. Senior, what if you go berserk and then somehow become a son-in-law of the Song clan? When we return to the sect, our punishment would be horrific. That's right, little patriarch, think things over again. Think things over again. Fatty stared at them with wide-eyed, his expression one of disbelief. But I'm already here, he said. Little patriarch, said Jade hurriedly, don't you know about all those junior sisters who have eyes for you? Plus, you have several official beloved assigned by the sect leader. They're waiting for you. He understood Fatty best, and the moment the words left his mouth, Fatty took a deep breath. All right, forget it. Let's just go along to watch the fun. As the Golden Frost sect disciples tried to dissuade Fatty, Wang Yaokai floated nearby, lost in thought. A strange aura circulated around him. He appeared 17 or 18, but emanated an extremely antisocial air, gazing toward the tree. He looked at Fatty, then at Meng Hao. Whenever Meng Hao looked back, he averted his eyes. Whatever had happened between him and Dong Hu, it seemed would remain a secret that only the two of them could understand. 2. The relationship between Dong Hu and Wang Yaokai is mentioned most recently in Chapter 71, Dong Hu and Chapter 72, A True Man. The mournful, screaming wind whipped the sea into madness. The dark shadows which swam back and forth in its depths made this whole place seem incredibly awe-inspiring. Amidst the howling wind, everyone surged forward. The wind blasted against their faces as they shot toward the enormous tree. This chapter was sponsored by Jeremy Holovax, Daniel Pennell, Ross Hilton, and Daniel Dean. Chapter 194, Will of the World Tree 1. The World Tree was mentioned in a few previous chapters, including Chapter 109, Chapter 158, and Chapter 160. Flying high was impossible, as wind speed increased with altitude. Meng Hao saw a Black Civ sect disciple who tried to fly up toward the tree top. Before he got too high, he screamed, his body dissolving into blood and flesh. The wind continued to pick up. It seemed as if it were filled with sharp blades, as well as a hard-to-describe pressure that made the 3,000-meter area around the tree seem like a wall. When Meng Hao entered the area, he felt the intense pressure pushing against him. The closer he got to the tree, the thicker the spiritual energy got. Of course, he could absorb it, and the closer he got, the more quickly he did so. His eyes shone brightly. Moving forward must be very difficult for everyone else, but for me, this place is like a holy land of cultivation. He looked up at the enormous tree in front of him, which stretched thousands of meters up into the sky. Just exactly. What kind of tree is this? He could sense that the spiritual energy in the place was not the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but rather produced by the gigantic tree. As all the cultivators struggled their way toward the tree, up above the clouds in the sky, the members of the 5 sects and 3 clans watched on through the cloud vortex, eyes glittering. They could see everything quite clearly. Song Tian smiled. Of all the heroes and chosen of the various sects and clans that have come today, I wonder who will be the first to reach the tree. The nascent soul eccentrics from the sects and clans all smiled. I'm afraid it's difficult to say. I never imagined that Song clan's search for a son-in-law would involve this treasured painting. This tree was summoned by a will shard from the ancient world tree. It was painted by Taoist Grandmaster Shui Dongliu I. Shui Dongliu's name in Chinese is Chinese letter Shui Dongliu. This is a somewhat odd name. Shui is a Chinese surname which also means water. Dong means east. Liu means flow. So literally his name means water flows east, when he gained enlightenment at the legendary place where the world tree destroyed itself. With sufficient enlightenment, the tree itself can be summoned. It's a precious treasure capable of summoning the ancient. Hanbei sat off to the side, observing the nascent soul cultivators and their discussion. She looked for a moment at Meng Hao in the cloud vortex. Her face was calm, giving not even the slightest clue as to what she was thinking. Li Shiki stared at the tree created by the will shard of the world tree, lost in thought. The nascent soul cultivator from the Black Civ sect was a middle-aged man. The world tree's will shard releases the legendary heaven-replacing spiritual energy, he said. Unfortunately, it's useless to cultivators, only an obstacle, but with a suitable cultivation base and enlightenment, the world tree could be placed in that world. A truly precious treasure. Eventually, this treasure could help these disciples make a breakthrough. His gaze lingered on Meng Hao. He had noticed Meng Hao some time ago, of course, but had maintained his silence and done nothing. This tree is indeed a will shard of the world tree. The painting is entitled Ancient Will of the World Tree. The 8th Sea Lord of the Milky Way Sea gifted it to me 1,000 years ago. I brought it today to help the younger generation gain enlightenment of ancient times and to benefit all of you. This painting will not remain mine much longer. Song Tian laughed, shaking his head. I intend to gift it to whoever becomes the next son-in-law of this generation of the Song clan. This caused the other nascent soul cultivators to stare wordlessly at the cloud vortex, their eyes shining brightly. Suddenly, eccentric Song, who sat several places down, laughed and said, "Patriarch, would it be appropriate for me to have a little wager with these fellow Taoists in regards to who will reach the tree first?" Elder Fan from the Solitary Sword sect laughed heartily. He took a swig of alcohol and jeeringly said, "All of us will naturally bet on our own sect's disciples. Elder Song, who will you bet on?" "I bet on Him," said eccentric Song, lifting his arm and pointing toward the cloud vortex at Meng Hao. All of the nascent soul cultivators followed the line created by eccentric Song's fingers to look at Meng Hao. The eyes of the nascent soul cultivator from the Black Civ sect sparkled. The Wang clan nascent soul cultivator frowned. Elder Fan from the Solitary Sword sect laughed and gave eccentric Song a meaningful look. "Excellent, what are the stakes?" said the nascent soul cultivator from the Blood Demon sect, a withered old woman with a full head of silver hair. Her voice was raspy, like bones rubbing together. She smiled hypocritically. "I put up this soul fruit," he said. He flicked his sleeve and pressed his fingers down onto his forehead. After the space of a few breaths, the illusory image of a small, cross-legged figure emerged. In the blink of an eye, the small figure coalesced into an object that looked like a spirit fruit. It emitted a delicate fragrance. This was none other than a soul fruit, something that nascent soul cultivators could congeal into being from their nascent soul and could compare to precious materials. Heaven and earth could produce spirit fruits, but to nascent soul cultivators, their bodies were their own heaven and earth and could naturally produce such fruits. Soul fruits are like good fortune from heaven and earth and are the most precious treasures of nascent soul cultivators. Soul fruits from others have replenishing powers, and to nascent soul cultivators are the most optimal source of healing and restoration. Hearing eccentric Song's words caused thoughtful expressions to appear on the faces of the other nascent soul cultivators. Not much time passed before all of them coalesced soul fruits of their own. Soon, 8 of them hovered together in midair. 8 soul fruits. To any nascent soul cultivator, such stakes would be incredibly tempting. All of the cultivators pretended not to be moved, but inwardly they shook with excitement. They gazed through the cloud vortex at the various disciples. Song Tian smiled and did nothing to prevent the proceedings. Of the 2 men sitting next to him, one was meditating with eyes closed, the other was closely watching the cultivators in the cloud vortex, his face grim. The Song clan Dao child, Song Yunchu, sat calmly near Patriarch Song Tian. He said nothing, just smiled. Within his eyes flickered an intense light. Eccentric Song seemed enlivened. His eyes shone as he gazed at Meng Hao in the cloud vortex. "All right, boy," he thought. "I want to see the same skills you used that day in the state of Zhao. If you win, I'll gift you with one of these soul fruits as a reward." Because of what had happened in the state of Zhao, as well as various rumors he had heard in the Song clan, eccentric Song keenly anticipated Meng Hao's performance. As the people above placed their bets, the dozens of cultivators down by the enormous tree continued to forge ahead. Because of the pressure pushing against them, they couldn't move very quickly, but they continued forward nonetheless. At the moment, the fastest of the group was Wang Tengfei. His eyes were red and he moved forward recklessly. To him, this was his only chance. If he joined the Song clan, then he could start everything anew and begin a new rise to prominence. "Chu Yuan, you slut, and you Meng Hao, just wait for me." He ground his teeth as he pushed forward a few dozen meters. After Wang Tengfei was Wang Yaokai, who approached quietly. Behind him was a group of cultivators including Chen Fan, who had taken the lead among them. Fatty, with his entourage of protectors, moved along neither quickly nor slowly. Meng Hao was obviously a bit behind. However, his expression was calm as he proceeded forward. Every so often, he would pause and cautiously suck in a bit of the thick spiritual energy around him. Soon an hour had passed. Wang Tengfei was only about 30 meters from the tree. Wang Yaokai was roughly 60 meters away. Everyone else was about 300 meters or closer. Up above in the clouds, eccentric Song was getting nervous. Around him, the other nascent soul cultivators began to smile. 300 meters away, Meng Hao took a deep breath. He had been carefully absorbing spiritual energy the entire way. The effect was the same as consuming a handful of Civ Earth pills. Despite his caution, he was able to absorb more and more spiritual energy. Meng Hao's eyes suddenly glittered. This is a rare opportunity, he thought. I might as well absorb all of it. Determination filling his eyes, he began to move forward. In that instant, a tremor ran through his body as he ceased to repress his 4 perfect Tao pillars. They began to rotate, and a buzzing sound echoed out within him. A massive vortex appeared around him. The vortex instantly caused the surrounding spiritual energy to shoot toward him. The water beneath him was whipped into a fury, and Meng Hao's very body seemed to distort and grow blurry. Mysterious spiritual energy screamed into him, and his speed suddenly increased dramatically. It wasn't that he was aiming to increase his speed. However, as he moved forward, the spiritual energy grew more and more abundant. In the blink of an eye, he was not 300 meters away from the tree, but 250, then 200. Meng Hao's cultivation base was gradually increasing. The outline of his 5th Tao pillar was now completely visible and rapidly congealing. Meng Hao started to get excited. He took a deep breath and moved forward even faster. Considering he had decided to recklessly absorb the spiritual energy, there was no reason not to absorb all of it. This was Meng Hao's personality. Even when he was a scholar, he had been like this. It was simply how he lived. Normally, he didn't like to cause a scene, but sometimes causing a scene was unavoidable. When it happened, he would go all out. His 5th Tao pillar coalesced, and his cultivation base continued to climb. His eyes began to glow brightly, and his aura grew more and more powerful. In the space of a few breaths, he had rocketed forward until he was only 90 meters from the tree. His sudden blazing speed was too incredible, as was his absorption of the spiritual energy. The surrounding cultivators noticed immediately. They saw the fear-inspiring vortex which surrounded him, and could sense him absorbing the thick spiritual energy which had been blocking them. It shot toward him at incredible speed, sending ripples throughout the entire world. What's he doing? He's absorbing the spiritual energy. That's impossible. How can he be doing that? The surrounding cultivators looked at him with shock. It wasn't just them. Up in the clouds, all of the onlookers were watching the scene, their hearts filled with astonishment. He's swallowing up the ancient spiritual energy. What is he? What kind of cultivation technique does he use to be able to do that? The eyes of the nascent soul cultivators glittered like lightning as they watched Meng Hao. They were shocked to the core, never having imagined that they would see something like this. Interestingly, even though they were nascent soul cultivators who should easily be able to see a person's cultivation base, Meng Hao's Tao pillars were currently obscured from their vision. It was as if some bizarre force were interfering, making it impossible for them to pick up even the slightest clue. The middle-aged man from the Black Civ sect watched thoughtfully, his eyes narrowed. He had noticed this strange obscuration of Meng Hao's Tao pillars even before he entered the cloud vortex. As the alarmed nascent soul cultivators watched Meng Hao's advancement, the Song clan patriarch Song Tian looked at him, his eyes glowing brightly. In fact, his eyes hadn't left Meng Hao from the beginning. He stared wordlessly at Meng Hao in the cloud vortex, eyes flickering with surprise. Eccentric Song laughed loudly. He also found the scene to be unbelievable, but on the other hand was incredibly happy. As his laughter rang out, Hanbei sucked in a deep breath, thinking about how Meng Hao had been able to enter the square cauldron even though the name Meng did not exist in the 9 great families. Li Shiki's phoenix-like eyes flashed as she watched Meng Hao thoughtfully. Down by the enormous tree, the spiritual energy roiled, causing the wild wind to grow in intensity. The wind buffeted Wang Tengfei, causing him to spin backward from 30 meters to about 125 meters. The others were blown back as well. With this reversal, Meng Hao was now the closest person to the tree, being only 90 meters away. Wang Tengfei raised his head up and howled. He couldn't accept such a situation. He pushed forward with all his strength. However, at that same time, Meng Hao took a deep breath and also pushed forward. He moved forward about 30 meters and then another 30. In 2 short bursts, he was now only 30 meters away from the tree. Compared to the tree, he was like a cricket. The vortex around him swirled, causing the boundless spiritual energy in the area to suck toward him. The full shape of his 5th Tao pillar was now visible. If he continued at this rate, he would most likely be able to complete it. When he formed his 5th perfect Tao pillar, Meng Hao would definitely be the most powerful person in the Foundation establishment stage. Whether it be chosen or Dao children, the entire foundation establishment stage would be like dry weeds that could be crushed beneath his feet. Chapter 195, Suppressing Everyone. Meng Hao's chance was sudden and unexpected. His cultivation base climbed at incredible speed. The closer he got to the tree, the thicker the spiritual energy became. He took a deep breath, ignoring the strange looks. He was focused on the enormous tree and its bizarre spiritual energy, which only he could absorb. It had been a long time since he had been able to enjoy the refreshing feeling of absorbing spiritual energy. His eyes glistened brightly as his body flashed onward. The spiritual energy beneath the tree roiled madly. His body was like a whirling black hole, sucking all the spiritual energy in, without exception. His cultivation base continued to climb, and the image of his fifth Tao pillar grew clearer. Soon it would no longer be illusory. 10%, 20%, 30%. Meng Hao grew more and more excited as he absorbed the increasingly thick spiritual energy. He leaped forward, heading directly toward the base of the enormous tree. Next to the towering tree, Meng Hao was little more than an insect, tiny and weak. It was essentially impossible to even compare. They were as different as a firefly and the shining moon. Meng Hao was the first to step into the tree itself. The other cultivators closed in. Within the space of about 10 breaths, Wang Tengfei and Wang Yaokai also stepped onto it. They, of course, could not absorb the spiritual energy of this place, and therefore had no way to replenish themselves. There is no need to even mention how difficult it was for them to proceed forward. On the other hand, Meng Hao was like a fish in water. In an instant, he was already 300 meters away from them. After observing this, the eyes of the spectators shone with a strange glow. This was especially true of the Song clan patriarch. His eyes glittered brightly as he watched the cloud vortex and Meng Hao. So he can absorb the spiritual energy there, he thought. But that place is merely a painting of the world tree. It couldn't even be considered a projected image. However, it does contain some of the world tree's will as well as dense spiritual energy, although not much. His eyes glittered, although they contained some amount of hesitation. Eccentric Song too felt shocked, but was also about to go wild with joy. A wide smile emerged on his face. He looked at the shifting expressions of the other nascent soul cultivators and smiled even wider. He flicked his sleeve to collect the soul fruits together. Fellow Taoists, I shall collect my winnings. Do you wish to make another wager? I bet this kid will become the next son-in-law of the Song clan. What do you say, wager or no wager? The other nascent soul cultivators ignored him, refusing to be provoked, and instead focused on what was happening in the cloud vortex. They gazed thoughtfully as Meng Hao ascended the gigantic tree. Eccentric Song continued to prod a few more times, but seeing that the others refused to speak, he simply put away the soul fruits and laughed. The ill feelings toward Meng Hao from years ago were now completely gone. This Meng Hao kid isn't bad, said Eccentric Song, eyeing the cloud vortex. AI, if I had known he was like this, I would have bet on him against Wu Dinkyu all those years ago. Within the cloud vortex, Wang Tengfei's eyes were red. He was on the tree now, proceeding up. The spiritual energy in the area pushed against him, and he had no way to absorb it whatsoever. The wind whipped about, but he forged on without regard to caution. He knew that if he were knocked off the tree, then he would have to start over from the very bottom. Making progress was incredibly difficult, but every time he looked up and saw Meng Hao speeding along, it would cause him to ignore the screaming wind and intense pressure. Insanity and intense jealousy filled his heart, and he would proceed onward through the thick pressure. How could I possibly lose to him? He raged inwardly. I'm a Wang clan chosen. He stole my legacy and my beloved. Today I shall wrest away his good fortune. Why are you always so unfair to Wang Tengfei, heavens? I refuse. I will not give in. Setting his teeth, he shot upward. The wild wind buffeted him, but he held doggedly onto the tree. It felt as if his arms were about to rip off. To his astonishment, Wang Tengfei suddenly realized that the unabsorbable spiritual energy of this place, which exhibited such strong pressure, was actually lessening around Meng Hao. The closer he got to Meng Hao, the easier it was to progress. Behind him, Wang Yaokai, Kai and Shuihan, Lu Song as well as Fatty and the others, had all reached the tree and were relentlessly pursuing. All of them noticed Meng Hao's significant increase in speed. Meng Hao had already sensed that, although the spiritual energy in this place seemed thick and abundant, actually, the entire place was divided into different areas. The spiritual energy of the area he was currently in was almost sucked dry. Because of that, Wang Tengfei and the others were able to move more quickly. However, although the spiritual energy below him was decreasing, he continued moving upward. Soon, he encountered more dense spiritual energy, which he began to absorb immediately. His fifth Tao pillar was already about 40% complete. The spiritual energy here is organized in layers, he thought, his eyes shining brilliantly. Each layer can be completely absorbed into my body. Although it looks incredibly dense, there's actually not very much of it. However, if I absorb all of it, I should be able to complete my fifth Tao pillar. He continued upward, the spiritual energy pouring into him. When it grew thin, he moved to a new layer. Behind him, Wang Tengfei and the others increased their speed. With the spiritual energy dried up, the resisting pressure was gone. Only the raging wind remained. Their progress was easier, and the gap between Meng Hao and them was slowly lessening. The enormous tree was many dozens of meters in diameter, and from a distance didn't seem very far away from the cloud layer above, where the nascent soul cultivators watched the proceedings. Seeing what was happening caused them to sit there quietly in contemplation. The Wang clan cultivator let out a cold harumph. Eccentric song, let's make another bet. This time, the stakes are 2 soul fruits. Eccentric song hesitated for a moment, his brow furrowed. The Black Civ sect nascent soul cultivator coughed lightly. I'm in, he said. The nascent soul cultivator from the Li clan chimed in. So, another bet, he said coolly. Eccentric song, why don't we all join in? 2 soul fruits per person, winner takes all. His words made eccentric song even more hesitant. After a long moment passed, he gritted his teeth. He actually had incredible faith in Meng Hao's ability to perform, so he flicked his sleeve. We're on, he said. Subsequently, all of the nascent soul eccentrics produced soul fruits. Seeing so many in one place caused all of the cultivators to palpitate with eagerness. The stakes of this wager were significantly greater than the previous bet. At the same time as all the eccentrics made their bets, Meng Hao shot up at top speed. He had passed through 3 layers of the enormous tree and had now progressed roughly 30% up. By now, Wang Tengfei and the others were a mere 30 meters behind him. It seemed they might soon pass him. Meng Hao's face was calm. The good fortune of this place lay in the spiritual energy. As far as he was concerned, it didn't matter who was in first place. Suddenly, Wang Tengfei roared. Employing some unknown magical technique, his body began to glow, and he shot up with incredible explosive speed. In the space of a few breaths, he had progressed more than 30 meters. This caused him to pass Meng Hao by nearly 10 meters. However, before he even had a chance to rejoice, an enormous force caused his body to tremble. The pressure caused him to cough up blood as it enveloped his body. Just then, Meng Hao passed him, sucking the spiritual energy of the area into his body. The pressure began to subside. If it hadn't, Wang Tengfei felt as if he might have been crushed down into the tree by a giant, invisible hand. Meng Hao's expression was the same as ever as he proceeded onward, ignoring Wang Tengfei. He passed the area that was covered with the blood Wang Tengfei had coughed up, continuing to absorb the spiritual energy. After absorbing all of it, he moved onto the next layer. Clearly, anyone who wanted to try to pass Meng Hao could do so by merely charging forward. However, seeing what happened to Wang Tengfei shook the hearts of all the cultivators below. They stared at Meng Hao with strange expressions. As for Fatty, he took a deep breath and looked completely disbelieving. As of this moment, none of the pursuing cultivators dared to pass Meng Hao. Meng Hao continued on slowly, which gave them no other option than to do the same. Looking embarrassed and helpless, they followed Meng Hao. Clearly, many of them had various plans in mind. They would wait until the very top of the tree, whereupon various techniques would explode out as they attempted to pass him. This chapter was sponsored by Atmasatrini Manon, Quentin Nivon, Sid Ahmed, Wei Chunan Joshua, Ismail Egel, Alvin Shim, Dewi Suryon. Chapter 196, followed by all eyes. Meng Hao was aware of it all. His expression remained unchanged as he ignored everyone else, pausing at each layer to absorb spiritual energy before climbing onward. Several meters behind him were all the other cultivators. They eyed Meng Hao helplessly, waiting for him to move onward before doing so themselves. Every pair of eyes watched Meng Hao. He was the focus of all attention. The Song clan's competition had become Meng Hao's stepping stone. Whether he won or not, he'd left a deep impression on Song Jia. Coupled with the events before the banquet, she ignored everyone else and focused solely on him. Perhaps it was fate. After today, the 5 clans and 3 sects would know that Meng Hao was also chosen. Perhaps it was fate. After today, stories of scholar Meng Hao of the state of Zhao would spread throughout the entire southern domain. There was now one more amongst the ranks of the chosen. Also fated was that previously unknown Meng Hao would be the complete center of attention. More and more cultivators would hear of him, and especially the matter of him and Chu Yuyan. Rumors would spread like wildfire throughout the entirety of the southern domain. Meng Hao would become the object of jealousy of countless male cultivators. Of course, he would also attract the notice of many female cultivators. He was now the subject of a huge scandal involving one of the four most beautiful women in the southern domain. Everyone was paying attention to him now. At the same time, anyone who hadn't heard about Meng Hao's dealings with the Violet Fate sect back in the state of Zhao would surely know about it now. Meng Hao's name would only become more and more well known. In truth, if people knew about the Black Sieve feud or how he took the Blood Immortal legacy, he'd instantly become the most famous cultivator in the southern domain. After all, he could sweep across Chosen and push down Dao children. Today was only the first sign. This was Meng Hao cutting into the southern domain. 1. In case you forgot, this is the title of Book 2. Time passed. Meng Hao, his expression the same as always, continued onward slowly. Behind him, many of the cultivators were growing impatient. A young man from the Violet Fate sect looked at Meng Hao slowly absorbing spiritual energy and frowned. Unable to accept the situation any longer, he shot forward. He slapped his bag of holding and immediately 8 talismans appeared to circle around him. A bright glow appeared, some sort of protective spell. With a triumphant cry, he charged onward, passing Meng Hao and entering the next layer beyond. The Violet Fate sect nascent soul cultivator coolly mentioned, "This is a chosen of the Violet Fate sect, Liu Gao. His cultivation base is beyond ordinary. His 8 talismans treasure can reduce any force of pressure by 80%. Even as the words left his mouth, his face suddenly grew unsightly. As soon as Liu Gao passed Meng Hao and entered the next area, his body began to shake. His face tightened and blood sprayed from his mouth. His body trembled as if it were under attack. Everyone watched as he howled and tried to endure. Meng Hao cleared his throat. He stopped in his tracks for a moment, looking up and waiting. After the space of a few breaths, the Violet Fate sect disciple coughed up more blood. One by one, his 8 talismans disintegrated. With a miserable scream, he fell down into the sea below. He emerged moments later, pale-faced, and began to climb again. It didn't take him long to rejoin the group of people below Meng Hao, where he stared upward with fear and respect. Everyone looked thoughtfully at Meng Hao, who once again cleared his throat and moved upward, absorbing spiritual energy along the way. No one dared to attempt to pass him. They could only follow helplessly. Time passed as Meng Hao proceeded through the layers. By now, his 5th Dao pillar was about 70% complete. The further he progressed, the more spiritual energy he needed. Before long, Meng Hao was roughly 3,000 meters from the apex of the enormous tree. Wang Tengfei's eyes flashed, and though Wang Yaokai said nothing, his eyes shined brightly. A look of anticipation covered Fatty's face. He had no thoughts of trying to pass Meng Hao, but was very much looking forward to seeing what happened when Meng Hao reached the top. It wasn't just the cultivators whose eyes glittered. Up in the cloud layer, the eccentrics from the 5 sects and 3 clans, as well as all the Song clan members, were all focused on Meng Hao. Although his participation in the Song clan search for a son-in-law had been unexpected, a critical moment was approaching. Everyone watched on with keen anticipation. With a smile, Song Tian said, "At the top of the tree, there is a final test. Of the heroes of the various sects and clans, it's hard to say which one will be able to pass the final test." One of the nascent soul cultivators laughed and said, "I had heard that part of the tradition of your Song clan search for a son-in-law involves a difficult test. I'm very curious as to the nature of this test. Elder Song, would you mind explaining a bit about it?" "That's right," said the Golden Frost sect's nascent soul cultivator. "I've also heard such things. Elder Song, would you mind telling us some about it? We're all very curious." Everyone seemed very interested in hearing about the final test. Song clan patriarch Song Tian laughed loudly. Then he looked at the middle-aged man who sat at his right hand. "Mukyu, we are searching for a husband for your daughter. Why don't you explain the final test?" The middle-aged man was handsome and dashing. Hearing the words of the patriarch, he clasped his hands respectfully and then looked at the group of people, eyes flashing like lightning. Then he glanced at Song Jia, and a warm, loving expression filled his face. His voice cool, Song Mukyu said, "The final test in our search for a son-in-law is a bit different than the tests in previous generations. This is a test of a cultivator's Dao heart." The nascent soul cultivators frowned. Elder Fan from the Solitary Sword sect frowned and took a drink of alcohol. Matters of Tao hearts aren't even clear to us, let alone these foundation establishment pups. That is why this test is special, replied Song Mukyu. Elder Fan is correct. Tao hearts are mysterious and unfathomable. Actually, the Song clan believes that one of the most important aspects of the Tao heart is determined by personality and behavior. The combination of the two, as well as a person's stubbornness. That is the Tao heart. Therefore, although today's test is not conclusive, it will give us some inkling of what will be. Actually, as it relates to Tao hearts, this test is actually a choice. Having said this much, Song Mukyu closed his mouth and declined to comment further. Everyone else sank into deep thought. As for Song Jia, she continued to watch Meng Hao within the cloud vortex, very curious as to what choice he would make during the final test. Song Yunchu's eyes flickered as he calmly watched the cloud vortex. He was Tao child of the Song clan, and yet, as he watched Meng Hao, an uneasy feeling welled up in his heart. He was used to concealing his emotions, though. His exterior was calm, but he was extremely curious to see what choice Meng Hao would make. As Tao child of the Song clan, I was able to take the test myself ahead of time. My choice. Song Yunchu was lost in thought. He had only succeeded on his second try. Succeeding in such a fashion had earned him the praise of Patriarch Song Tian. With a smile, Patriarch Song Tian said, Mukyu makes it sound very complicated. The final test is a choice, and also a test of observation. I should make clear that the Tao child of our Song clan succeeded on his second attempt. He glanced at Song Yunkai with a look of praise. This caused everyone to grow even more curious. They all looked back down, waiting for Meng Hao to break through. They also peered at the group of cultivators behind him, all of whom were waiting for their chance to spring forward. Meng Hao began to move faster and faster. His fifth Tao pillar was now 80% complete, and he now needed even more spiritual energy than before. Remembering the horrific scene that had accompanied the completion of his last Tao pillar, Meng Hao wanted to be certain there was enough spiritual energy in this place before he reached the point of no return. Otherwise, when the critical juncture arrived, then he would have no choice but to consume the other cultivators. That was a path that Meng Hao refused to tread. Cautiously but quickly, he absorbed the spiritual energy. He proceeded, leaving behind some of the spiritual energy and moving on to the next layer. He was rapidly approaching the top of the tree. Because he had left behind some spiritual energy, the cultivators behind him suddenly encountered the resisting pressure and had no choice but to slow down. They trudged on desperately. However, there was now more and more distance between them and Meng Hao. Wang Tengfei's eyes were completely red. He pursued madly. Meng Hao was now only 1,500 meters from the top of the tree. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 250 meters, 150, 50. Meng Hao leaped up, surpassing the final gap to stand on top of the tree. At this moment, all eyes were upon him. Chapter 197, Sublime Spirit Scripture. At this moment, the Song clan patriarch and eccentric Song stared at Meng Hao. Without exception, all Song clan members in the cloud layer watched him. The nascent soul cultivators of the 5 sects and 3 clans all focused on him as well. Such attention showed how famous Meng Hao now was in the southern domain. Members of the Song clan such as Song Yunchu, as well as Han Bei, Li Shiki, Li Dai, everyone's attention was focused solely on Meng Hao. The chosen from the various sects and clans, regardless of their frustration or helplessness, regardless of what thoughts were running through their heads, were looking up at Meng Hao. Wang Tengfei, Fatty, Wang Yaokai, Kaiyan Shuyan, Lu Song. Atop the tree at the pinnacle of this world, Meng Hao stood alone, the focus of all the heavens. As he stepped atop the tree, boundless spiritual energy sucked toward him, enough to complete his 5th Tao pillar. Far below, the massive sea looked smaller, like a mirror. Beyond the mirror's edges lay nothingness. This world wasn't limitless. In the nothingness appeared handwriting, floating faintly. The ancient will of the world tree, respect its strength, remember its intentions, painted in the spot where the world tree destroyed itself. It was signed with 3 characters, Shui Dongliu. Shui Dongliu, could this entire world be a painting? Meng Hao's eyes flickered at the words. He took a deep breath, allowing spiritual energy to flow into him. The instant his 5th Tao pillar reached 90%, a person appeared ahead of him. It was an old man with a transcendent demeanor. He wore a long gray robe, his exact age impossible to discern. He was clearly ancient, though how many ages impossible to tell. Meng Hao sensed no ripples from the man's cultivation base. He seemed mortal, not a cultivator, yet considering his antiquity, how could he be mortal? The old man looked at Meng Hao, his face calm and filled with unspeakable dignity. It seemed as if even the heavens would flee from before him. The old man spoke, his voice cool. The heavens are not the heavens, the earth is not the earth. The stars are eternal and the Tao will always be. His words floated out gently, much the same as his hair floated gently around his body. This place does not belong to the heavens, nor to the earth. This painting of the world tree contains endlessly flowing memories. Drink of them, and the great Tao in front of you will lead you to the utmost heights. Select a path upon which to approach me. Suddenly, 9 snaking paths appeared among the twisted leaves of the tree's crown. They all led toward the old man, who stood only a few hundred meters up ahead. Each path led to the same destination, the old man. The old man lifted his hand. There between his fingers was a thumb-sized pearl. Select a path upon which to approach me and then take the pearl. Choose wrong and you must start over. The pearl was white and seemed to contain an entire world within its depths. Looking at it, Meng Hao noticed that it was not round. For some reason, it seemed to be the shape of a cube. It was very bizarre. Suddenly, Meng Hao could sense the 3-colored resurrection, lily inside of him being suppressed slightly. 9 paths, and I have to pick one, he frowned. By this time, Wang Tengfei and the others were approaching. However, they weren't able to step onto the treetop. It seemed that there was some invisible force that prevented more than one person from being atop the tree. Meng Hao thought for a while as he looked over the 9 paths. He had no clue how to select a path. He looked at the man up ahead, and then his eyes gleamed. The man was holding the pearl with 3 fingers. After thinking for another moment, Meng Hao took a deep breath and then walked forward onto the 3rd path. The instant his foot stepped down on the path, the world seemed to turn upside down. A roaring filled his ears, and everything grew blurry for a moment. When everything became clear, he found that he was now at the very bottom of the tree. He was only a few hundred meters from the surface of the sea, falling downward. His mind reeled, and he forced himself to a stop. Looking up, he saw Wang Tengfei climbing up onto the top of the tree. I chose wrong, so I have to start over, he frowned. Selecting a path seemed to involve little more than random guessing. How could one pick, other than going through the paths one by one? Meng Hao muttered to himself for a moment. Then, his eyes flashed as he saw Wang Tengfei falling down from the top of the tree like a shooting star. He too had failed, and had to start from the beginning, at the sea beneath the tree. Meng Hao leaped into action, heading up toward the top of the tree at top speed. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, he was less than 3,000 meters away from the top. During that time, he witnessed over 10 cultivators falling down toward the ocean. Meanwhile, up in the cloud layer, the nascent soul cultivators watched on with furrowed brows. Having seen everything that happened, they broke into discussions. 9 paths. How can one know which path to choose? It must involve careful observation. The answer doesn't lie in blind luck but with that old man. He is not emanating any cultivation-based ripples, and yet emanates a profound air. Perhaps the answer to the riddle is hidden in the words he spoke. No wonder this test requires careful observation. There doesn't seem to be any clear solution. For the Song clan Dao child to have passed the test in 2 tries really is worthy of admiration. Hanbei looked at the scene playing out on the tree. Her eyes shined with interest. After thinking for a moment, she said, "The 4th path from the left." Li Dai's eyes flashed. Having heard that the Song clan Dao child passed the test in 2 tries, he felt a sense of competition rising within him. He slowly said, "The 4th path from the right. That path doesn't look special, but the leaves there are somewhat thicker." Furthermore, the old man seemed to pause slightly after every 4th word he spoke. Li Shiki's eyes also flickered, but she said nothing. She was lost in thought as she stared at the 9 paths. Song Yunchu's expression was placid, but in his heart he sighed. He had succeeded in 2 tries, but in fact, it had all been a matter of luck. He actually had no idea how he had succeeded. Patriarch Song Tian laughed but said nothing. Hearing the discussions, he shook his head and fixed his attention to the top of the tree. Meng Hao was nearing it again. Meng Hao moved quickly, and the 3,000 meters whizzed by. The only people left at the top of the tree were Fatty and others from the Golden Frost sect. Seeing Meng Hao approach, Fatty immediately made way for him. Meng Hao nodded. Another person up above failed, after which Meng Hao's body flashed and appeared for a second time on the treetop. By this time, his 5th Tao pillar was more than 90% complete. There wasn't much spiritual energy left, but Meng Hao was certain it was enough to complete the Tao pillar. He took a deep breath as he stood there atop the tree. He gazed at the old man, then recalled his words again as he looked over the paths again. Then he stepped forward onto the fourth path. He had made exactly the same choice as Hanbei. However, the moment he stepped onto it, everything turned upside down, and he was again shooting down toward the sea beneath the tree. I'm really starting to dislike this place, he thought, his eyes filling with both frustration and determination. All of the chosen from the various sects and clans who had failed once were now making their second attempts. And yet, one after another, they failed, falling downward just like Meng Hao. Meng Hao went up to try a third time. By this time, everyone was watching with strange expressions. They were all lost in thought, trying to figure out what they had overlooked, which path was correct. More discussions broke out among the nascent soul cultivators. This place is very mysterious. These kids have all had 2 chances each, and between the lot of them have tried every one of the 9 paths. Clearly, the correct path changes. The route is not fixed. It seems that luck does have quite a bit of a role. Hanbei frowned, continuing to look on. She was now starting to form another opinion on which path was the correct one. "There's no need to get anxious, friends," said Patriarch Songtian. He laughed. "To find the correct path, each person must observe matters carefully. It will all depend on their Tao heart." Atop the massive tree beneath the cloud vortex, Meng Hao shot back upward. He was currently about 9,000 meters from the top of the tree when suddenly his Tao pillar reached the point where it was only a sliver away from being completed. The same phenomenon that had appeared in the Xiao clan once again began to occur. His body immediately began to wither. Thankfully, there was plenty of spiritual energy in this place. The unbridled gravitational power of the Tao pillar began to absorb all of the spiritual energy, no matter how far away it was. Each and every bit of it rushed toward Meng Hao. His face was ruddy as he felt his cultivation base climbing upward. He shot upward and was soon only 3,000 meters from the top. His mind began to reel. A booming sound could be heard, and Meng Hao's face flickered as suddenly a golden light began to collect inside of him. His cultivation base started rotating, causing the light to shine outward. It seemed as if it wished to eclipse the world tree. Amidst the golden glow, streams of magical symbols appeared. They were indistinct, but the instant they appeared, they caused the entire world to be filled with a golden color. Up above, looks of disbelief appeared on the faces of the nascent soul cultivators. One by one, they stood up. "That's the sublime spirit scripture," said one of the other nascent soul cultivators breathlessly. This chapter was sponsored by Fan from Wa. Chapter 198, the number 1 person in Foundation Establishment. The nascent soul cultivators couldn't maintain their cool. One by one they spoke, eyes shining with unprecedented brightness. "That's definitely the power of one of the 3 great classic scriptures, that golden glow. It's the sublime spirit scripture. That kid cultivates with the sublime spirit scripture. It's supposedly been lost for years. Only fragments remain. How did he get the whole scripture?" From the looks, he acquired the Qi condensation manual of the sublime spirit scripture. It supposedly appeared a few hundred years ago in the state of Zhao and was used by Patriarch Reliance, whose cultivation base was unfathomable. Their eyes were on Meng Hao, but what they really focused on was the sublime spirit scripture. Each and every one of them could crush Meng Hao between their fingers like he was nothing. He wouldn't be able to fight back in the least. Whichever one of them got their hands on Meng Hao would actually be acquiring the sublime spirit scripture. Such a text would be indescribably useful to any sect. Whoever acquired it would be in the position to sweep across the southern domain with impunity. That sect would become incomparable, and would without fail become the overlord of the southern domain. How could these nascent soul cultivators not be excited? Even if Meng Hao succeeded in becoming a son-in-law of the Song clan, they would still no doubt crazily pursue him regardless of anything. In any case, Meng Hao currently was not a member of the Song clan, and was only one participant among many. It wasn't appropriate to make a move at the moment, but once Meng Hao emerged, all of the sects and clans in the southern domain would want to grab him. In such an event, his life wouldn't be important. To get the sublime spirit scripture, there wasn't a single nascent soul cultivator who would hesitate to use soul search on Meng Hao to drag out the sublime spirit scripture. The result of such a soul search would kill him. As soon as the sublime spirit scripture appeared, Meng Hao instantly became the prey of all of these super sects of the southern domain. It was obvious what everyone was thinking. The nascent soul cultivator's eyes glittered. This was the Song clan, but sooner or later, someone would make a move. They all glanced over at the Song clan patriarch. Meng Hao had openly revealed his secret of possessing the sublime spirit scripture. It would without fail arouse the lust of any sect or clan. However, in terms of positioning, the Song clan currently had the clear advantage. As the nascent soul cultivators looked over at the Song clan patriarch, they discreetly retrieved transmission Jade slips and crushed them between their fingers. This instantly sent notifications back to their various sects and clans. Eccentric Song watched the scene in shock. The rest of the Song clan members all seemed to be in shock. Patriarch Song Tian suddenly stood up. His eyes shone mysteriously, and he was breathing heavily. However, he then recalled what had happened within the clan earlier, along with the warning transmitted by the Tao Reserve Patriarch, and his eyes filled with determination. "This Meng Hao," he said, "must not be provoked. Whoever causes problems for him is seeking death." He flicked his sleeve. "Ladies and gentlemen, you are in the Song clan." His words echoed out like thunder, causing the faces of the nascent soul cultivators to tighten. Blood seeped out of the corners of their mouths. Their eyes glistened with fear as they stared at the Song clan patriarch. "Regardless of what objectives you might have, this is the Song clan's search for a son-in-law," he said, his eyes shining. "Whoever succeeds will become a son-in-law of the Song clan. Once everyone emerges, there will be time for your greed. However, if Meng Hao becomes the son-in-law of the Song clan, then it must be viewed as the will of the heavens." "Elder Song, we will naturally comply with your words," said the nascent soul cultivator from the Black Civ sect, smiling. The rest of the nascent soul cultivators all agreed slowly, pretending not to pay any attention to Meng Hao. However, in their hearts, they were preparing for the arrival of fellow sect members. Patriarch Song Tian was of course well aware of that. He sighed inwardly and said nothing more, continuing to gaze at the golden world within the cloud vortex. Magical symbols appeared in the golden glow that spread out from Meng Hao. This was none other than the sublime spirit scripture. Observers would be able to make out the details of the magical symbols, but would be unable to commit them to memory. The only thing they would be able to remember would be a blur. In the southern domain there are 3 classic scriptures. Only one of them emits a golden glow, the sublime spirit scripture. There were no records of the origin of the scripture, or of who created it. There were many legends, though. One stated that it had been created by an eminently powerful cultivator of the Tao-seeking stage who had walked the path of the 9th mountain and sea. However, such a matter seemed too monumental. As such, many people refused to believe such a legend. Regardless, each of the 7 manuals of the sublime spirit scripture could be considered precious treasures. In fact, the reason that the Violet Fate sect became one of the great sects was because it had acquired a fragment of the Foundation Establishment Manual of the Sublime Spirit Scripture. Just a fragment of one of the manuals could give birth to a great sect. This alone demonstrates the boundlessness of the Sublime Spirit Scripture. Practicing the cultivation of the Sublime Spirit Scripture would eventually cause the body to reach the point where it would emit magical scriptures. This is a special state and a special sign. Such a state could only be reached after 9 Tao pillars had been formed. Then it would become visible. However, because Meng Hao had a perfect foundation, he was in a unique position with his 5 Tao pillars. That was why the sign made itself visible now. Of course, this turn of events exceeded Meng Hao's powers of anticipation and caught him completely unawares. His heart instantly filled with vigilance, and he immediately pulled out the good luck charm and prepared it for activation. As the scripture floated out from his body, and the golden glow filled the entire world, the chosen from the various sects looked up at him in astonishment and shock. Fatty gasped and began to mutter to himself, "That's Meng Hao for you. He was awesome in the Reliance sect. Then he came to the southern domain and seduced Chu Yuyan. Now he's showing off even more power." Wang Yaokai stared wordlessly at the golden light. Inside, similar waves of admiration filled his heart. As for Wang Tengfei, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body shook. A sense of unwillingness wanted to rise up within him, and yet he was forced to admit that Meng Hao was no longer someone he could afford to look down upon. In fact, fear began to well up in Wang Tengfei's heart. Not even 10 years had passed since they last met. After another 10 years, how much further would Meng Hao have surpassed him? Wang Tengfei didn't even dare to think about what would occur if one day he himself was still in the Foundation establishment stage, but Meng Hao reached core formation. If they met again at that time, what would happen? The stir caused by what was happening now far exceeded the recent spectacle created by Meng Hao when he had climbed the tree. He panted as intense booming sounds filled his body. They far exceeded the roaring he had experienced when he created his fourth Dao pillar in the Xiao clan, so much so that Meng Hao's heart shook and his flesh leaped. He felt his fifth Dao pillar being completed. After the space of a few breaths passed, his head suddenly resounded with an enormous roar. Finally, his fifth Dao pillar appeared in full. His fifth perfect Dao pillar. With this fifth Dao pillar, his cultivation base rocketed to new heights. Blinding golden light shined out from him, and the magical symbols of the sublime spirit scripture revolved around him in circles. They seemed as if they were prostrating themselves toward Meng Hao. Every breath he took caused the symbols to flutter. Every blink of his eye caused the golden light to shine even more blindingly. His cultivation base rose higher and his battle prowess soared. Meng Hao was transforming in an unprecedented fashion. Suddenly, tribulation clouds appeared in the mountains of the Song clan, and they lingered for some time before dissipating. Meng Hao's long hair floated about him, and his body filled with an indescribable might. As the roaring continued to echo out, his heart began to thump. He took a deep breath as he allowed all the feelings to wash over him. The explosive growth of his cultivation base caused his battle might to far exceed his previous pinnacle. Meng Hao was now convinced that at the moment, he could easily sweep across the entire foundation establishment stage. Regardless of chosen or Dao children, all of them were beneath him. He had a perfect foundation and 5 Dao pillars. He was invincible within the foundation establishment stage. In front of him, all foundations except for flawless foundations could be crushed by his perfect foundation. At the same time, however, a profound sense of danger welled up within him. He knew that everyone outside was watching him. The scripture symbols which were floating around him were obviously from the sublime spirit scripture. Despite the feeling of danger, determination filled Meng Hao's eyes. Fingering the good luck symbol, he leaped forward. This place was already devoid of spiritual energy, so he shot forward toward the treetop, surrounded by the golden glow. So far no one has come down after me. There's definitely not much time left. Meng Hao was nervous, but also wasn't willing to leave quite yet. His goal, the cubic pearl, was still there for the taking. Then he could escape with the good luck charm. If the charm could get me out of the ancient blessed land, then this place will naturally be no problem either. The good luck charm needed time to prepare, so at the same time as he poured power from his cultivation base into it, he shot upward. Utilizing the strength of his 5 perfect Dao pillars, he shot past the final 3,000 meters to arrive at the empty treetop. The gray-robed old man stood there. The 9 paths in front of him had been affected by the golden glow and now appeared to be paths of gold. This was Meng Hao's 3rd time standing here. His eyes glowed brightly. The time had come to make his final choice. The choice he made was one that only Meng Hao could make. Chapter 199, The 10th Path. All the nascent soul eccentrics watched with shining eyes. If not for the Song clan, they would have acted. Frightened but prepared, they saw Meng Hao as a turtle in a jar, unable to escape even with wings. The only thing they needed to worry about was the Song clan. The importance of the Qi condensation manual of the sublime spirit scripture was hard to describe. Actually, many of them couldn't understand how it was possible that their various sects had permitted the scripture to remain in the Reliance sect and had chosen not to go take it. Their eyes flickered as they watched on. They were simply waiting for Meng Hao to come out and for backup from their sects to arrive. However, the nascent soul eccentric from the Black Civ sect's eyes flickered with something else, undetectable to the others. The Jade slip which he had crushed contained details different from that of the others. Not only had he passed on the information about the sublime spirit scripture, but also news that he had tracked down Meng Hao. Orders had already been issued by the patriarchs of the Black Civ sect to search for the person who had snatched away ultimate vexation. The news hadn't been broadcast on the outside, of course, and their search could only be conducted secretly. Therefore, the appearance of the sublime spirit scripture was not a good development for the Black Civ sect. All of the sects are now paying attention to him, thought the Black Civ sect nascent soul cultivator, his eyes flickering. I need to grab him first before all his secrets are revealed. A cold smile appeared on his face. Ancient blessed lands cannot contain this guy. He has a good luck charm from the ancient good luck sect. He can go anywhere in the world. He was the only one among the nascent soul cultivators who knew that this phantom fragment of the world tree was incapable of keeping Meng Hao trapped within it. He wasn't worried, though. Once the Black Civ sect learned that Meng Hao had the good luck charm, they had instituted a slew of contingency plans. Down beneath the cloud vortex, in the glowing, golden world, Meng Hao took a deep breath. He stared at the old man who stood only a few hundred meters away on the treetop. They were separated by 9 paths, all of which glowed with golden light. 3 of the paths actually seemed to glow a bit brighter than the others. How do I pick? Meng Hao stood thoughtfully. A cold light gleamed in his eyes. He'd made 2 failed choices. This was his 3rd chance. Failure meant no 4th chance. Meng Hao had guessed which path was correct, the one he'd walked before. True cultivation required persistence without changing one's mind. This was the key to these paths. But that choice is not born of my will. His eyes shone with coldness. He moved forward as all the nascent soul cultivators watched. Even through the blinding golden light, their vision pierced through to observe. As he shot forward, his 5 perfect Tao pillars exploded with invincible power. The golden glow thickened, his speed increasing. But he didn't pick any of the 9 paths. Instead, he flew up and shot directly at the old man. In the blink of an eye, he bypassed the 9 paths and appeared in front of the old man. He lifted his hand, his cultivation base rippling out. A 600-meter flame dragon appeared and slammed down. Meng Hao lowered his hand, causing the cubic pearl to fly out of the old man's hand and into his own. The old man didn't do anything whatsoever to stop him. As the flame dragon engulfed him and the pearl was snatched away, a mysterious light appeared in his eyes, and a slight smile touched the corners of his mouth. The old man's archaic voice filled the air. You realized which path was correct. Why make this choice? The golden glow was suddenly suppressed. Now all the chosen could see what was happening atop the tree. The sight shocked them. Disbelief covered their faces as they watched the old man engulfed in flames. Meng Hao floated in midair. It was clear he hadn't picked any of the paths but had chosen to kill the old man. He dared attack. Meng Hao chose not to walk a path. He chose to attack. How? That old man is unfathomable. You can see he's beyond ordinary. This place is bizarre. I can't believe Meng Hao dared attack. How didn't I think of that? Even as the chosen beneath the treetop expressed their shock, the nascent soul eccentrics up above instantly shot to their feet, their eyes fixed upon Meng Hao. This was especially true of Patriarch Song Tian. He gasped, and a glow of disbelief radiated from his eyes. A serious expression filled his face. It wasn't just him. Eccentric Song Hanbei, Li Shiki Li Dai, as well as Song Clan Dao Child Song Yunchu all stared with completely disbelief. Panting, Song Yunchu stared fixedly at Meng Hao. He had participated in this test and had succeeded on the 2nd try after picking the same path as the first time. However, he had never imagined that you could actually raise a hand against the gray-robed old man. How could he do such a thing? Said Song Yunchu said hoarsely. That's the spirit of the tree. It was at this moment that everyone heard the old man's question echoing out from within the flames. It was the exact same question that was running through the heads of all the observers. Why had he chosen such a path? Conforming to convention is emptiness, replied Meng Hao. Yielding to the heavens is well and good. Unending persistence is fine. However, I cannot choose either. He shot up into the air. He would not comply with these rules but create his own path. Like his perfect foundation, not permitted by heaven and earth, targeted by tribulation lightning, he would continue. That's how he differentiated himself. His path wasn't inflexible adherence. So why follow these rules? Why pick from the 9? He chose to break through by force, by slaughter. He could succeed by persisting on the original path, but such persistence was just rule following. It wasn't true persistence. The old man's laughter rang out from the flames. His smile was filled with happiness and anticipation. He gave Meng Hao a deep look, allowing the flames to consume him. Soon his body was gone. As the old man disappeared and Meng Hao shot up into the air, the chosen down below in the tree looked up mutely. They stared at Meng Hao in shock, their hearts in turmoil, incapable of calming down. Meng Hao's choice had been simple, but not many people were capable of simplicity such as this. They lived lives of compliance, lives in which rules must be followed. Perhaps the subconscious desire existed within them to break out of the rules, but they would never be able to imagine how to do so. Meng Hao, however, was different. Wang Tengfei's face was pale white, and Wang Yaokai was speechless. Fatty's face slowly filled with even deeper admiration. Meng Hao's words just now had left a permanent impression on all of their hearts. When they heard his words, the nascent soul cultivators in the clouds above all gasped. As they looked at Meng Hao, the same thought filled each and every one of them. If this kid lives, he will definitely achieve a high position within the southern domain. Such a personality, such mentality, such tactics. All of it led the nascent soul cultivators to the same conclusion. Meng Hao might have the sublime spirit scripture, but as of now, they didn't want to capture him and use Soul Search to retrieve it. That would lead to his death. If they could get Meng Hao to join their sect, they could help him grow into a truly powerful expert of the sect. Li Dai's eyes glowed with a powerful light, an intense desire to do battle fermented within him. Li Shiqi's eyes also glowed brightly. Looking at Meng Hao down beneath the cloud vortex, she also suddenly desired to have a rematch. Hanbei looked at Meng Hao thoughtfully. Deep within her eyes flickered a sense of admiration and praise. She couldn't help but think that if she had been in Meng Hao's place, she would have picked to follow the original path. She would never have had the resolve of Meng Hao. In retrospect, it seemed like an easy decision, but in reality, it was something almost no one would ever think of doing. Song Yunchu sat in thought. Next to him, Song Jia gazed at Meng Hao. Everything that was happening was being burned deeply into her mind. Conforming to convention is emptiness, said Patriarch Song Tian. Well said, his voice echoed out as he stood up. The surrounding nascent soul cultivators' hearts began to thump. The situation was not unfolding well for them. This kid has managed to take the cubic pearl. Whoever he is, whoever he has offended in the past, this daughter of the Song clan is now his. Who here dares to touch him? Hearing his words caused everyone to sit there thoughtfully. And yet, none of them seemed to notice the meaning within Patriarch Song Tian's words. What he had said was strange. He never mentioned anything about marrying into the family. His words seemed to have a deeper meaning. At this exact moment, the bright glow of multiple spells filled the air outside of the Sun and Moon Mountains of the Song clan. Powerful chi suddenly appeared, as figure after figure emerged. The 5 sects and 2 clans had arrived to investigate. This chapter was sponsored by Fan from Wa.